The figure descending through the air gradually touched the ground. Su Zimo's feet landed within the solid earth of the prison. Looking up, he saw the towering structure before him, a massive cage shrouded in infernal energy. The prison rose like a black tower into the heavens, its peak shaped like an oval spear point stabbing toward the celestial vault. The demonic aura here was unlike any ordinary miasma. It was wilder, more violent, saturated with endless resentment. The earth beneath his feet was cracked in every direction, fissures carved by the weight of countless ages. Su Zimo paid no heed. Stepping across the broken ground, he advanced slowly, one step at a time. As he neared the sealed tower, the once turbulent infernal energy suddenly calmed. It became subdued, like servants bowing before their king. Only after stepping closer did Su Zimo notice that the entire tower was bound by countless iron chains. Whenever the demonic aura surged, those chains would flare with violet light, suppressing everything within. Before Su Zimo could move further, 3 figures appeared before him. They had not materialized out of nowhere. He had sensed them since entering the ancient demon realm, lurking in the shadows, always watching. He knew they were sent by Hellfire Azura to monitor him. Though he had not yet met the fiend, Su Zimo knew well that the man cared so much he dared not appear. He feared seeing Su Zimo. He feared what Su Zimo's return would mean. "Honored guest, this is not a place you should come," said one of the 3 figures, stepping forward. Their faces were hideous, not from expression, but from birth itself. Each wore a great black robe, shaped like a predatory eagle's cloak, covering their bodies completely. On the backs of those robes were 3 blood-red lines, symbols of the blood demons. The blood demons were the personal guard of Hellfire Azura. Su Zimo recalled what he had read. Another buried chapter of history. The blood demons were once a proud branch of the ancient demon race, powerful and revered. But tens of thousands of years ago, they committed a great sin, one that nearly led to their annihilation. Hellfire Azura had spared them from extinction, but ever since, they had vanished from public sight. The ancient demon race despised them, and they became his secret guard, confined to forbidden places, never seen by outsiders. To the rest of the ancient demons, they were like living corpses, dead men bound only to one master. The ancient ancestor sent word, "You are not to come here," said the blood demon standing in the middle. "And why not?" Su Zimo asked calmly. "Is there still a place in the ancient demon realm forbidden to me?" "The ancient ancestor says that what lies inside must never be released," the blood demon replied. "The ancient demon realm needs peace. I hope you understand." Su Zimo laughed coldly. "Peace," they said. He understood Hellfire Azura's fear perfectly. He feared that if the imprisoned ancient demons were freed, their hatred accumulated over millions of years would consume the ancient demon realm in ruin. The fragile calm of the demonic lands would collapse into chaos and war. "Tell Hellfire Azura," Su Zimo said evenly, "these are my people. Whether there is peace or chaos, it is mine alone to command." The 3 blood demons exchanged uncertain looks, then shook their heads. "We follow orders. Nothing more. You cannot step inside." "If you must enter," said the blood demon on the right, "then you'll have to walk over our corpses." Su Zimo's voice was calm, almost indifferent. "Do you really think I've refrained from killing because of mercy? Even if I must tread upon your corpses, why not?" As his words fell, the blade spirit behind him unsheathed itself. A dazzling surge of sword intent flooded the sky, slicing through the heavy demonic clouds above. The blood demon on the left didn't even have time to react. He was obliterated instantly, leaving not even a scrap of flesh. The other 2 stared in horror. The one on the right lunged forward, claws several meters long, fangs bared like a beast, no, worse than a beast. The blood demons were among the strongest branches of demonkind. They drew power from blood. The more they drank, the stronger they became. To fight a blood demon was to fight against time. Delay meant death. Yet as this one charged, Su Zimo didn't even flinch. He merely flicked the blade with his finger. A single clang resonated, sharp and pure. In that instant, one of the 10 primordial God scriptures manifested. The infernal creation, eternal canon. A divine art of sound, it did not need instruments. Wherever sound existed, it could weave its power. The note from Su Zimo's finger exploded through the world like thunder. Under that resonant wave, the blood demon was reduced to ashes, erased completely from existence. Su Zimo lifted his eyes calmly. Only one blood demon remained. That last one stood frozen, staring at him in mute terror. Then, trembling, he stepped back. What do you intend to do? Su Zimo did not answer. He simply walked forward, slowly, relentlessly. For every step Su Zimo took forward, the blood demon stepped one back, until there was nowhere left to retreat. "Don't kill me," the blood demon stammered. Su Zimo placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Among ancient demons, we were once kin. Why must it come to this?" "I remember," Su Zimo said softly. "Your clan once basked in glory. Our ancestor," the blood demon whispered fearfully, "once carried the sedan of a great figure. That's what I've been told." "Yes," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "He carried it well, steady, unshaken, even if the heavens themselves were collapsing. You should not have shamed his name." He patted the blood demon's shoulder. A wisp of Zhurong's fire flared to life, burning the demon into nothingness. A long sigh escaped Su Zimo's lips. He turned and walked toward the great tower. Gripping the massive iron chains that sealed it, he felt their heat, searing, molten, almost alive. They burned at his flesh like magma, but Su Zimo did not let go. He held tight, pulling with all his might, intent on tearing them apart. As if sensing his strength, the violet chains began to writhe. Their light surged, runes flashing wildly across their surface like flickering stars. The whole tower began to quake, earth shaking, deafening booms echoing one after another. Then, suddenly, the violet light blazed brighter than ever. When the violet radiance flared to its peak, it suddenly wove itself into a vast, roaring web that shot toward Su Zimo, wrapping tightly around him. The purple net constricted, drawing tighter and tighter, as if determined to crush him completely. But Su Zimo's demonic aura surged to its fullest, the violet lines along his neck beginning to glow. With a thunderous boom, the purple web exploded apart. The veins on Su Zimo's forehead bulged, the muscles in his arms strained as if they would burst. "Break!" he roared. Behind him, the purple planet of the god world flashed into existence, channeling immense power through his body. A crackling storm of energy coursed through the chains. The pop, pop, pop of breaking links filled the air. Countless violet chains snapped apart, one after another, cascading like a dam bursting open. Once the first chain broke, the rest followed uncontrollably. The purple glow dimmed, then vanished entirely. As the final chains shattered, the sealed tower began to tremble violently. A voice echoed out, deep, ancient, and filled with madness. "At last, we are free. Ha ha ha. Hellfire Azura, you could never imprison us forever. None shall stop the Lord's return." The shout was like thunder splitting the heavens. Lightning tore across the sky. The world itself seemed to rage. Black clouds billowed and churned like tidal waves. The ground beneath fractured into a labyrinth of cracks. The massive sky prison began to crumble, hurling stones and rubble from the collapsing heights. Finally, the sealed tower burst open with a deafening explosion. From within poured endless black vapor, swirling upward into the heavens, scattering in every direction. They had been trapped for so long that freedom itself had become a forgotten dream. Now, tasting liberty again, they could not restrain themselves. Su Zimo did not try to. He simply stood, watching as the sky was engulfed by their chaotic release. After a time, the black mist began to descend, coalescing into millions of figures kneeling before him. "We greet the infernal Lord." Their unified roar shook heaven and earth, just as a bolt of lightning tore through the clouds, signaling the final collapse of the airborne prison. Su Zimo stood calmly amid the ruin, hands clasped behind his back, expression unshaken. Around him, the countless freed ancient demons knelt, eyes filled with devotion and reverence. "It has been a long time," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "Far too long, my lord." One demon choked out, weeping openly. Su Zimo lowered his gaze. There were more than 100 million of them, each one distinct, each one unforgettable. One demon had white hair and wore crimson armor shaped like the maw of an abyss, its layers folding inward like rows of devouring fangs. A red cape draped his back, black robes hung loose beneath, and a golden sash girded his waist. The armor rose to guard his throat. Another was a being half Buddha, half demon. One side of his face was serene, golden hair coiled in the monk's knot, with a faint Buddha will glowing behind his head. The other half was pure malice, black skin, hair spiking upward, fangs bared in fury. Yet another wore garb that looked like wild calligraphy given life, part cloth, part armor, indescribable. The surface shimmered like overlapping fish scales, each curved and gray. He had 4 arms, each gripping the hilt of a colossal sword, together forming a bloom of deadly petals. The sword was 100 meters tall, bound in chains. Even sealed, it radiated a terrifying purple light that made hearts tremble. His face was narrow like a rodent's, half covered by long gray bangs, leaving one visible eye blazing with violet fire. Every demon bore a unique and fearsome presence, each unforgettable at a glance. "It's been eons," Su Zimo said softly. "Tell me, have your ambitions to defy heaven faded?" Time, he thought, was the greatest killer of all. It erodes everything, and after billions of years, what could truly survive it? One demon suddenly stood and tore open his robes. His skin was carved with countless words. "Destroy the heavenly Tao. Defy the heavens. Follow the infernal lord. Lie in wait through the ages. These words will never fade while I still breathe," the demon declared firmly. "If my flesh heals, I will carve them anew." Back then, I regretted not dying beside the Lord. For millions of years I have waited to rise again and wage war against heaven. If I must die, let it be on the road to defiance, not in cowardly survival. As these fierce vows rang out, Su Zimo closed his eyes briefly. The crowd fell silent. A breeze passed, stirring a few strands of his black hair. "Life is long, and yet, gone in a blink," Su Zimo said quietly. "Some see only dust, others the stars." Then his eyes snapped open, sharp as blades. "And I," he said coldly, "will spend my life chasing those stars." The stars he spoke of were not literal. They were the ideal, the summit beyond life and death, beyond fate itself. "My lord," one of the ancient demons asked after a moment, "what has become of the ancient demon realm now? What of Hellfire Azura?" They all still remembered the one who had imprisoned them. "You have just been freed," Su Zimo said. "Rest. There are old friends waiting, you may go and greet them. As for the ancient demon realm, I will handle it myself." With a wave of his hand, a portal opened to the god world. The ancient demons bowed deeply once more, then stepped through one by one. When the winds finally stilled, Su Zimo collected his thoughts and surveyed the entire ancient demon realm. Then he took a single step, crossing space and time in an instant, until he stood upon a desolate mountain. The wind here howled like knives, cutting at the skin. Among the jagged rocks, Su Zimo found a boulder and sat down, waiting. No one knew what or who he waited for. At last, from the far side of the mountain, a man approached through the air. He wore a long robe, his body wreathed in violent infernal energy. His face was chiseled, his gaze deep and cold. Yet his robe was not black. It was a scholar's garb, gray and white, bound with a sash. The first impression he gave was pride with reason behind it. Each step he took on the jagged rocks sounded sharp in the wind, crunch, crunch. Aside from the screaming gusts, his footsteps were the only sound on the peak. Finally, he stopped before Su Zimo. He looked at him calmly. "You he began, but Su Zimo interrupted. When you see me, Su Zimo said evenly, why do you not kneel? The man's expression changed. After a long silence, he slowly sank to his knees. Greetings, my lord, the man in black robes said respectfully as he knelt. Rise, Su Zimo replied with a nod. The Demon Master, the current patriarch of the ancient demon realm. The Demon Master stood, neither confirming nor denying it, but his gaze remained fixed on Su Zimo. What is it that you truly want? He asked. What I want, you can't guess? Su Zimo countered. Hellfire Azura sent you here, he added. Yes, said the Demon Master. The ancient ancestor said the ancient demon realm needs peace. Whatever conditions you have, state them. We will do what we can to meet them. Why doesn't Hellfire Azura meet me himself? Su Zimo asked coldly. What? Does he not dare face me? The ancient ancestor has his own reasons. We do not dare speculate, replied the Demon Master. And you? What do you think? Su Zimo asked. I am the patriarch of the ancient demon realm. I place the welfare of the ancient demon race above all else, said the Demon Master, shaking his head. His personal opinion didn't matter. Whatever benefited the ancient demon race, he would do. Go tell the ancient demon race that I am waiting here on this mountain, Su Zimo said calmly. If there are any who still wish to follow me to battle, let them come. If they do not, in 3 days' time I will leave on my own. I will not disturb the peace of the ancient demon realm. No matter what, they once rendered great service. I will give them the chance for an honorable end. This? The Demon Master hesitated, looking troubled. He knew that if he spread this message, chaos would sweep through the ancient demon race. But truthfully, the ancient demon race was already in turmoil. Su Zimo's reappearance in the Victory Tower had already spread throughout the realm. The Infernal Lord had returned. If you do not spread the word, others will, Su Zimo said indifferently. It does not have to be you. I'll do it, the Demon Master said after a long pause, meeting Su Zimo's gaze. But I hope you will keep your word. As he left, Su Zimo merely smiled faintly, unmoved. Now he had 4 Saint Sovereigns by his side, along with dozens of ancient demons freed from the sky prison. If it came to war, Hellfire Azura could do nothing to stop him, and would have to worry about the safety of the ancient demon realm itself. Su Zimo believed that Hellfire Azura didn't have the courage to face him head-on. And even if he did, Su Zimo did not fear him. Have you heard? The Infernal Lord has returned. He's on Dragon Mountain. Really? Are you sure that's true? The Patriarch himself spread the word. Do you think that could be false? Should we go to Dragon Mountain and see for ourselves? Of course. Not just us, many elders, even old ancestors who rarely appear, have already gone there. Within the ancient demon realm, as expected, the news caused an uproar. Everywhere, ancient demons whispered and argued, but most of them, all but a few, were heading toward Dragon Mountain. Dream Demon Emperor, what do you think? At the foot of the mountain, the first to arrive were naturally the high-ranking members of the ancient demon race. And you, Sunset Emperor? Hard to say, blessing or disaster, who can tell? But since he's here, we must pay our respects. I heard the sky prison fell from the heavens. Yes, but Hellfire Azura hasn't reacted. It seems he tacitly allows it. Su Zimo looked up as the sound of countless footsteps echoed from halfway down the mountain. He rose to his feet and looked down from the summit. A vast crowd had gathered. Nearly 10 trillion ancient demons filled the slopes, densely packed, covering Dragon Mountain from base to peak as far as the eyes could see. They climbed slowly, not daring to fly in his presence. I greet the Infernal Lord, cried a million high-ranking ancient demons at the front as they reached the summit, falling to their knees. Behind them, the sea of ancient demons followed suit. Trillions bowed together, their unified shout shaking heaven and earth. I greet the Infernal Lord. The chorus thundered again, the sheer power of it echoing through the realm. Su Zimo lifted a hand. Rise, he said calmly. Then he turned, and among the crowd he saw a familiar face. the elder he had once met at the academy, who called himself the Demon Sage and had playfully told Su Zimo to call him Little Zhe. "You knew my identity long ago," Su Zimo said. "I did not dare presume, only guessed." The Demon Sage replied quickly. Su Zimo gave a faint nod, then turned his gaze to the countless ancient demons below. His voice carried immense demonic power, rolling across the entire ancient demon realm and stirring the black clouds above. "I believe you all know why I have come, and who I am." His voice was like thunder splitting the heavens. "I wish to wage war against heaven once more, and all that I have done is in preparation for that war. Among you some knew me once. Others belong to the new generation who may only have heard my name. It doesn't matter." He paused briefly, then continued, his tone solemn. "Since the dawn of the demon race, our people have shared one goal: to defy heaven, to destroy the heavenly Tao, and to build a world where ancient demons can live in fairness and freedom." "But why must we defy heaven?" a demon suddenly asked from below. "We live peacefully now in the ancient demon realm. We rule the god-fiend abyss heaven. Who dares look down on us? What meaning is there in waging war on heaven, my lord?" "The reason the ancient demon realm seems peaceful now," Su Zimo explained, "is because I still live, and because the ancient demons trapped in the primordial demon caves still strive to return. Heaven seeks to divide us from within. If the ancient demon race truly joins the war on heaven, it would be branded a sin beyond forgiveness. Do you really think peace would last? Would we still rule the god-fiend abyss heaven?" "You may be the infernal lord," another voice spoke up, "but I do not know you. I've lived 1,000 years, and I've never owed you anything. You claim heaven plots against our race. Why should I believe you?" "You need not believe me," Su Zimo said evenly. "Just answer me one question. Since the ancient demon race came to dwell in this god-fiend abyss heaven, aside from the two Saint Sovereigns, Celestial Devourer and Hellfire Azura, has there ever been a third Saint Sovereign? And even if there were others, did any of them live long?" His words sent a chill through the crowd. Celestial Devourer and Hellfire Azura had both attained sainthood during the Heavenly War, so they did not count. The ancient demon realm had endured for millions of years in relative peace, long enough to amass vast power. Its disciples and warriors were countless, like the stars in the sky. Yet the cruel truth was this: in all that time, only 2 Saint Sovereigns had ever existed. Even in the god-fiend abyss heaven, the vast heaven god realm possessed 3 Saint Sovereigns. Of course, not all Saint Sovereigns were equal in power. Su Zimo suspected that Celestial Devourer and Hellfire Azura had already reached the level of Sage Monarchs. A Sage Monarch was the pinnacle of the 5 stages of the Saint Sovereign realm. That in itself was not surprising. Otherwise, how could the ancient demon realm have ruled the god-fiend abyss heaven for so long? Although the vast heaven god realm possessed 3 Saint Sovereigns, their cultivation realms were not high. Even combined, they were likely no match for a single Sage Monarch. The crowd fell into deep thought. The path of a Saint Sovereign had always been arduous. 1 in tens of trillions could hope to achieve it. But for ancient demons, it was even harder. It was as if the laws of the world themselves rejected them, making enlightenment nearly impossible. Occasionally, a heaven-defying genius would appear among the ancient demon race, one who grasped the primal Taos and achieved sainthood, such as the malevolent demon who once created the ancient demon road. Yet these newly risen Saint Sovereigns rarely lived over a century before they mysteriously perished. And that was absurd, for a Saint Sovereign's lifespan was already almost equal to the universe itself. How could they die within a mere 100 years? But the ancient demons did die, and none knew why. The ancient demon realm never pursued the truth. Rumors circulated endlessly. Some claimed their lifespans had simply reached their end. Others whispered that they had been slain. Countless theories existed, but never a definitive answer. Now, hearing Su Zimo's words, many ancient demons trembled. A cold chill ran down their spines, as if something within them had been awakened, something they did not want to face or believe. "So you mean, our ancient demon race cannot become Saint Sovereigns because of the heavenly Tao? And those ancient geniuses who died young were killed by heaven itself?" One demon asked in a trembling voice. You already know the answer in your heart, Suzimo replied calmly. Why ask me to confirm it? Indeed, they were not fools. Many ancient demons had long suspected as much but dared not voice it. Even those who had never considered the idea quickly understood, once Suzimo hinted at it. I don't believe it. What about the demon master? What about the ancient ancestor? Let's ask them for an explanation. One demon shouted defiantly. Why do you refuse to believe? Suzimo asked, his eyes fixed on the speaker. You're afraid. The demon wanted to refute him, but the words caught in his throat. He was afraid and he knew it. For the ancient demon race, compared to the great powers of the world, the heavenly Tao was far beyond reach. The heavenly court could easily annihilate them. It's fine to fear, Suzimo said, but you must not cower. Fear is human nature, it can be forgiven. But once your heart gives in to cowardice, you'll never rise again. Even if a weapon lies in your hand, you will not dare to swing it. He turned his back to them, his gaze sweeping across the entirety of Dragon Mountain. I do not want you to cower, not for my sake, but for the sake of our entire race. Those who follow me, even if you are weak as a child, even if you face an enemy as mighty as a saint sovereign, you may die, you may fall, but you must never yield. Never let your heart tremble with fear. If anyone cannot do that, you may leave Dragon Mountain now. In 3 days I will depart the ancient demon realm. I will never set foot here again, and you shall have your peace. At these words, hesitation rippled through the crowd. Some ancient demons began to quietly slip away. They had come mostly out of curiosity, but upon hearing that Suzimo meant to wage war on heaven once again, all courage drained from them. Everyone has their own path, Suzimo murmured to himself. He felt no anger, nor disdain for them. Their ways were simply different, and there would be no future between them. If they crossed paths again, and they stood in his way, he would show no mercy. With what shall we fight heaven? One demon asked thoughtfully, voicing the worry in many hearts. You have hands, you have feet. Why should victory be impossible? Suzimo said. Eons ago, we created the demon descent era where ancient demons reigned supreme. Why should we not do so again? And if we lose? Another demon pressed. I mean, what if, just what if, we fail? Then we begin again, someone answered before Suzimo could speak. Isn't that how everything in the world works? Perhaps heaven hasn't completely eradicated us yet, but what about 1,000, 10,000 years from now? We may return to dust, but what of our sons, our grandsons, the generations to come? I have never seen the infernal lord myself, said another demon, but I've read the ancient records and long admired him. I've always wished I could have lived in that age of war against heaven, to follow the Lord into battle. Exactly. Even if not for ourselves, we should fight for our descendants, for their right to live freely. As voices rose one after another, more and more ancient demons were stirred. Yet many still hesitated. To declare war on heaven was not something one could agree to in a moment of passion. Just then, a deep, resounding horn echoed through the ancient demon realm. It was a heavy, ancient sound, reverberating through the wild lands, shaking the heavens and earth. The blast came again and again, each louder than the last. That's the summoning horn, someone cried. It's been millions of years since it was last blown. Yes, whenever the summoning horn sounds, all ancient demons must gather. I remember the last time, it was 2 million years ago, when we marched to conquer the Northern Sea. What do we do now? Do we go? No. The Lord is here today. We follow him. As for the horn, we await his command. Await the Lord's command. The chant spread like wildfire through the crowd. At that moment, a figure approached from the distance, walking on air. It was the ancestral warden, whom Suzimo had met when he first entered the ancient demon realm. Clad in white robes, he hovered high above the mountain. The ancestral warden is the personal disciple of Hellfire Azura, someone whispered. If he's here now, what does it mean? Did you notice? Many of the disciples under Hellfire Azura aren't here today. Could it be that the ancient ancestor and the Lord have fallen into conflict? As murmurs spread, the ancestral warden swept his gaze over the crowd, his expression darkening slightly. He hadn't expected that Suzimo, having done nothing but speak a few words, could win over so many ancient demons so quickly. From his sleeve, the ancestral warden drew out a golden scroll, shimmering with demonic light. The decree of Hellfire Azura, the ancestral warden announced solemnly, unrolling it. All ancient demons are to assemble at Myriad Year Mountain. None are to remain on Dragon Mountain within 3 days. Those who disobey will be banished from the ancient demon realm. At those words, every face turned pale. The meaning could not have been clearer. The ancient ancestor and the infernal lord were divided. The ancestral warden rolled up the decree and looked down at the ancient demons below. "What are you all waiting for?" he said coldly. "Do not forget, this ancient demon realm is your home. You were born and raised here. Will you really abandon it, all because of a few words from this man?" When the ancestral warden's words fell, many of the ancient demons' hearts began to waver. To be expelled from the ancient demon realm, after all, this was their home. The ancestral warden then looked up at Suzimo and said, "Young Master Su, the ancient ancestor asked me to bring you a message. Some matters are better left alone. Don't take things too far." "Don't take things too far? Is that meant for me, or for him?" Suzimo replied. "Go back and tell Hellfire Azura this," he continued. "For the sake of the time he once served as my infernal archon, I will tolerate him, but that does not mean he can do whatever he wants." The ancestral warden fell silent. There were some matters he preferred not to get involved in. Nothing good would come of it. "I will report your words truthfully," the ancestral warden finally said, and then stopped speaking to Suzimo. Turning toward the assembled disciples, he asked coldly, "Have you all thought this through? Do you really want to be cast out of the ancient demon race?" "Lord Ancestral Warden," one demon argued, "our people has always followed the infernal lord. To expel us without cause violates all rules. What, is the ancient ancestor the only law in the ancient demon realm now? Is this realm ruled by his words alone?" Another shouted angrily. Several ancient demons began to question him outright. But the ancestral warden remained calm, his tone steady as he replied, "The ancient demon realm needs peace. If you follow him to war against heaven, that balance will be broken. To send you away from the ancient demon realm is simply the separation of different paths. Nothing more." "Ancestral Warden speaks the truth," Suzimo said lightly. "Those who follow me to war will indeed leave this realm. When or if you return, no one can say. But this is not exile. You will leave of your own choice." With that, the matter was decided. Some ancient demons began to withdraw, and Suzimo merely watched in silence, not stopping them. At this stage, he knew it was necessary to cast out those who differed from him, to keep only those who shared his conviction. As more left, the ancestral warden's face darkened. For although some departed, the vast majority remained, still standing on Dragon Mountain. "Fools, have you truly made up your minds?" the ancestral warden asked grimly. "Lord Ancestral Warden, why do we cultivate?" One demon suddenly stood and asked, meeting the ancestral warden's eyes. Ancestral Warden frowned slightly. "What are you trying to say?" "I think everyone here knows the answer. We cultivate to become strong, to avoid being bullied, to protect those we care for. That's the simplest truth," the demon said with a bitter smile, before his gaze sharpened, his tone turning cold. "But now you tell us that no matter how hard we train, we can never become saint sovereigns, and that heaven itself seeks to destroy us. Then tell me, what the hell is the point of cultivation?" "Exactly!" Another demon stood up and shouted. "We're like livestock, pigs being fattened. The heavenly Tao feeds us now, keeps us content. But when the Lord dies, when the ancient demons of the primordial demon cave are destroyed, we'll be next on the chopping block. Isn't that right?" "This?" The ancestral warden fell silent. He wanted to argue, but the truth stood before him. What could he say? We are willing to follow the Lord, whether to fight heaven or to be shattered to pieces. Whether for the revival of our people or for ourselves, we will never ever regret it. A demon roared. Just then, as the confrontation reached a standstill, a loud commotion broke out. Ancient ancestor, save us! A desperate voice cried from beyond Dragon Mountain. Everyone frowned and turned toward the sound. A demon, covered in blood, stumbled toward them, fleeing in panic. What's going on? The ancestral warden demanded. The demon collapsed, rolling across the ground before he could steady himself. Look at yourself. What sort of disgrace is this? Is the sky falling? The ancestral warden snapped coldly. The sky has truly fallen. The demon gasped, nodding weakly. No sooner had he spoken than the air shook with booming explosions. The crowd's expressions changed instantly. In the ancient demon realm, everyone recognized that sound. Someone was attacking the realm's barrier. What's happening? The ancestral warden barked. Speak clearly. It's the heavenly court. The bloodied demon cried. They're attacking. The heavenly court. The ancestral warden began, then stopped himself, glancing toward Suzimo. His heart suddenly clenched. He understood now. The heavenly court's pressure had been looming for some time. And now, with Suzimo openly recruiting followers within the ancient demon realm, the heavenly court would no longer sit idle. They were moving personally. Still, the ancestral warden reasoned silently. The 9 heavens were connected, but traveling from one to another was no simple task. The heavenly court could not send its armies en masse from the calamity immortal heaven to invade the god-fiend abyss heaven. So perhaps there was still room to maneuver. Has the ancient ancestor been notified? The ancestral warden asked the wounded demon. Yes, but the ancient ancestor hasn't responded. The disciple answered cautiously. Come with me. We'll meet them in battle, the ancestral warden said, casting one last look at Suzimo before flying off into the distance. Once he was gone, silence fell across Dragon Mountain. The ancient demons looked at one another, each deep in thought. Then the demon sage stepped forward and asked, My lord, what are your orders? Do you wish to save the ancient demon realm? Suzimo asked. Yes, the ancient demons shouted in unison. This is our home. Of course we'll fight for it. And the heavenly court will crush them all. The ancient demon realm must be protected, Suzimo said calmly. Let it remain as a pure land. But as for those ancient demons outside, I will not save them. He looked around at the crowd. You all know why. Those ancient demons, the ones who had left Dragon Mountain, had chosen comfort over conviction. From that moment on, they and Suzimo had ceased to be connected. Even if they were slaughtered to the last, it would have nothing to do with him. They chose an easy life, Suzimo said softly. Then they must pay the price. The ancient demon race will never know peace, for heaven itself forbids it. If you truly crave a peaceful world, then overthrow this old villainous heaven. Otherwise, peace will never exist under it. We understand, the ancient demons answered loudly. My lord, what shall we do now? Wait, Suzimo said simply. The heavenly court's target is us. They will come soon enough. Though anxiety gnawed at them, none dared act without his command. In the distance, explosions continued to shake the land, battle after battle raging outside the barrier. But in the end, the gates of the ancient demon realm were shattered completely. The ancient demons scattered. Some fled, others were slain, until corpses carpeted the ground. The heavenly court wasted no time. Locking onto Suzimo's position, their forces surged forward, straight toward Dragon Mountain. My lord, they're here, the demon sage said, standing and gazing toward the far horizon. At last, a distant light appeared. Suzimo opened his eyes. From his body, raging infernal energy ignited and burned like a dark flame. He saw a celestial warship speeding toward them, grand and imposing like a moving planet. At the ship's prow was the head of some kind of god beast, though Suzimo did not recognize what species it was. The tail of the ship was a massive circular ring, upon which hung 5 luminous moons, each a pure white the color of amber. The entire vessel radiated an ethereal, otherworldly aura. Its structure was intricate, the hull covered in a thin blue light film. Though still far off on the horizon, everyone already felt the crushing pressure it exuded. The colossal ship advanced at a speed nearly invisible to the naked eye, the air erupting with constant sonic booms. Spirit energy from all directions gathered at the ship's prow. The beast's mouth opened wide, devouring the heavens, condensing boundless power. A torrent of energy tore through the void, crashing down with unstoppable force. Before Suzumo could move, the demon sage rose into the air, meeting the torrent head-on. His right hand curled slightly, infernal energy gathering into a black sphere in his palm. The sphere detonated in midair. A thunderous explosion echoed. Boom! When the shockwave faded, the demon sage stood unharmed, his gaze calm, his robes immaculate. He looked toward the celestial warship, which now hovered to a stop. Moments later, trillions of heavenly court cultivators emerged from within. They all wore the same long robes, predominantly blue and white, and carried an air of cold arrogance. After these soldiers took formation, 2 figures finally stepped out from the ship. One was an elderly man with snow-white hair, well past his prime. The other was a young man in his 20s. At their appearance, every demon around tensed, expressions grave. "They're heavenly court's celestial sages," someone whispered solemnly. It's said that every celestial sage of the heavenly court is a saint sovereign. None below that realm are qualified for the title. I've also heard that when one becomes a celestial sage, the heavenly court erects a statue in their honor, so that all in the calamity immortal heaven may worship them, another added bitterly. Hearing their murmurs, Suzumo coughed lightly and rose slowly to his feet. "We have come under the order of the immortal lord," the old man announced, his voice sharp and echoing. "Where is Suzumo?" "Suzumo, come with us," quietly. "I stand right here," Suzumo replied evenly. "If you wish to take me, then come. This generation's infernal lord is so weak." The old man, Shen Mingzi, mocked as his eyes swept over Suzumo. "How disappointing. We were cautious before coming here, but now, I see there's nothing to fear. Do not underestimate him," the younger man beside him warned in a low tone. He was also a celestial sage. His name was Xiang Tianhui. He knew well that no demon was ever simple. If they were, the heavenly Tao wouldn't have struggled against them for so many years. "Brother Xiang, you're far too cautious," Shen Mingzi chuckled. "Think of the glory that awaits us when we capture the infernal lord. Once he's locked in the heavenly court's immortal confinement altar, his arrogance will be crushed. At his peak, my lord could have erased you with a fart." A demon shouted coldly from the crowd, unable to bear their insolence. "And now you dare bark before us? The heavenly court truly is full of idiots. In war, only victory and defeat matter," Shen Mingzi sneered. "There's no room for righteousness." He laughed, turning to Xiang Tianhui. "Just wait here, brother. Watch as I bring you the infernal lord's head." Xiang Tianhui wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. A powerful wave of divine might burst from Shen Mingzi. His aura surged, saintly power flooding the air as he instantly appeared before Suzumo. The void along his path shattered, torn apart by overwhelming force. Suzumo, however, stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back, watching indifferently. As Shen Mingzi's sharp eyes locked on him and his right hand reached out to seize Suzumo's shoulder, a deafening boom erupted. A massive hand appeared, gripping Shen Mingzi's wrist. The sheer force crushed it instantly, bones exploding into dust. That was the source of the blast. Shen Mingzi recoiled furiously, retreating through the air. His wrist regenerated in an instant, but his face was grim. "Who dares stop me?" he demanded, glaring ahead. There, standing in front of Suzumo, was Celestial Devourer, his aura vast and demonic power surging like a storm. Greetings, ancient ancestor. The ancient demons cried in unison, kneeling in reverence. They all knew the two mightiest beings of the ancient demon realm were Hellfire Azura and Celestial Devourer. The latter had long been in seclusion, seldom intervening in worldly matters, so most were more familiar with the former. Celestial Devourer, what is the meaning of this? Xian Mingzi demanded through gritted teeth. I should be asking you that, Celestial Devourer retorted coldly. Their divine and infernal auras collided, and though both radiated immense pressure, Celestial Devourer's presence clearly dominated. He was a sage monarch, while Xian Mingzi, though also a saint sovereign, was only an eternal overlord. The difference in power was undeniable. I come by order of the Lord of Heaven to apprehend the infernal lord, Xian Mingzi declared. This matter has nothing to do with your realm. The promise made to your ancient demon realm still stands. You may live out your final years in peace. But this is not your affair. Stay out of it. His words dripped with arrogance, as though he were bestowing a favor rather than issuing a warning. He continued, the heavenly court's armies will soon descend upon you. Consider carefully which side you stand on. You've enjoyed peace for millions of years. Surely you don't wish to see it shattered. Su Zimo, who had been watching silently all along, finally spoke. His face remained calm, voice quiet but carrying deadly intent. One word, he said. Kill. That single command ignited a storm of slaughter. Celestial Devourer moved first, his power roaring forth. Behind him, the countless ancient demons of Dragon Mountain soared into the sky, charging at the heavenly court forces above. The heavenly court had come with two saint sovereigns. Xian Mingzi quickly found himself entangled in combat with Celestial Devourer. The other, Xiang Tianhui, did not attack immediately. Instead, he stepped forward slowly through the air until he stood less than 10 meters from Su Zimo, both suspended high above the clouds. I want to know, Xiang Tianhui said evenly, what trump card you're hiding. Hellfire Azura will not fight for you. The 18 infernal archons do not consist of him alone, Su Zimo replied calmly. And what of it? They were all banished to the primordial demon cave long ago, Xiang Tianhui said. It seems, Su Zimo answered, shaking his head slightly. You know very little of the heavenly war in those days. The 18 infernal archons were not all banished. When Su Zimo said this, Xiang Tianhui's expression instantly stiffened. Could it be? There are other surviving infernal archons? Look behind you, Su Zimo said lightly, lifting his gaze meaningfully. Xiang Tianhui turned around in confusion, and his face immediately went pale. Standing behind him were Paimon, Seven-Face, and Red-Blade Bull Demon, all calm and motionless. Yet he had not sensed their presence at all. You all, Xiang Tianhui stammered, unable to form complete words. Since you're here, you'll stay here today, Su Zimo said. Paimon and the others flared with demonic might. Their power surged like a rainbow splitting the heavens, crashing down with unstoppable force. Old Bull, go help Celestial Devourer handle that one. We'll take care of this guy, quickly if we can, Paimon ordered. Red-Blade Bull Demon nodded, and the three of them joined the battle. The clash of Saint Sovereigns was not something even Su Zimo dared to intervene in rashly. All around, chaos erupted. The entire ancient demon realm was thrown into war, yet Hellfire Azura still did not appear. Su Zimo watched for a while. The battle would not end quickly. He recalled what Celestial Devourer had told him before, that the previous generation's infernal lord had left behind a certain place, one meant for him. Su Zimo decided now was the time to see it. By the time he returned, perhaps the battle would be over. With that thought, he left the collapsing void and the falling sunset behind, walking straight toward the base of Dragon Mountain. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw the ancestral warden standing there, gazing at the battle raging in the sky. The ancestral warden turned as Su Zimo approached, his expression deeply conflicted, his heart like a shattered jar of mixed emotions. He didn't know what to say. I heard the former infernal lord left behind a place, Suzimo said first. Yes, yes, there is such a place, the ancestral warden replied quickly. It's normally forbidden. Neither of the two old ancestors have ever entered. You mean to go there? Take me. Suzimo nodded. The ancestral warden dared not hesitate. Leading the way, he explained, I heard from Lord Hellfire Azura that it's a continent within a particle world, one the Infernal Lord once entrusted to us. Does Hellfire Azura know the heavenly court has come? Suzimo asked. The ancestral warden was silent for a moment, then nodded slightly. What do you think? Suzimo asked with a faint smile. This time, the ancestral warden took a long pause before answering. I think the old ancestor has no choice. We are fish, and they hold the knife. He brought this on himself, Suzimo said. Weakness is the original sin. A pity. He fought me for so long, yet never understood that truth. They passed through the mountain trail behind Dragon Mountain and stopped before a cliff. Though the ancient demon realm stretched boundlessly, here a great cliff appeared, an astonishing sight. Hellfire Azura once said, if you jump from here, you'll reach that place. The void below is weightless. Flight is impossible. The ancestral warden explained. I've never gone myself. Be careful. Suzimo nodded, then pointed toward the sky where ancient demons and the heavenly court battled. Take a good look, he told the ancestral warden. You've knelt before the heavenly court for so many years. You've lost even your balls. With that, he jumped straight down. The ancestral warden watched his descent, then turned and headed toward the demon mountain where Hellfire Azura resided. This was something he had to report. He went down? A heavy voice echoed within the demon mountain. Kneeling on the ground, the ancestral warden nodded slightly. Repeat everything he said to you, Hellfire Azura commanded. The ancestral warden obeyed without omission, recounting every word of their conversation. The mountain fell silent for a long time. Carefully, the ancestral warden lifted his head. Ancient ancestor, you don't plan to intervene? To offend the heavenly court would bring ruin to our ancient demon realm, Hellfire Azura said. But the heavenly court has already attacked us. They've slain many of our kind. The ancestral warden protested, frustration seeping into his tone. He had heard Suzimo's words before and knew something of the grievances between the ancient demons and the heavenly court. This is not your concern, Hellfire Azura replied. No matter who wins or loses, it has nothing to do with us. The ancestral warden rose to his feet, nodding reluctantly and preparing to leave. But before he could take more than 2 steps, Hellfire Azura called out to him again. You've been under my tutelage for several thousand years, haven't you? Yes, I was fortunate to be accepted by you since childhood, the ancestral warden said respectfully. 1,000 years passes in a blink, Hellfire Azura sighed. You are no longer that child who first knelt before me. All these years you've followed every order, right or wrong, without complaint. But I know you have your own thoughts. He paused, his tone growing weary. Tell me honestly, did I truly do wrong? Your disciple dares not judge, the ancestral warden said, trembling. I won't blame you. Speak your mind, Hellfire Azura said. After thinking for a moment, the ancestral warden carefully replied, Your original intent was not wrong, to keep the ancient demon realm away from strife. After all, war always brings death. No one wishes to die. The only mistake, ancient ancestor, was that you misjudged the situation. The situation? Hellfire Azura echoed. Yes. The ancestral warden pressed on. Neither the heavenly Tao nor the heavenly court can tolerate our ancient demon race. Why not? Because they will never admit they were wrong, the ancestral warden said, shaking his head. Eons ago, our ancient demons rose in rebellion to break free from destiny's calamity. Heaven never admitted fault then, and after destroying the previous infernal lord, it became even less possible. If heaven is never wrong, then in his eyes, we ancient demons must be. Heavenly Tao makes no mistakes, Hellfire Azura murmured again. These are just my humble thoughts, ancient ancestor. Please don't take them to heart. the ancestral warden said. No, you're right, Hellfire Azura said with a bitter smile. In the end, you, my disciple, see more clearly than I. It's not that I didn't know. I just clung to foolish, naive hopes. Tell me truthfully, the ancestral warden, do you also wish to join? Our Lord sighed. When he said the words, Our Lord, he paused briefly but still forced them out. Speak honestly. I won't be angry. Your disciple is willing to dedicate his life to the revival of our ancient demon race, until death, the ancestral warden said, kneeling firmly. Although the ancestral warden didn't say it outright, his meaning was clear. He, too, wanted to join the cause of the demon race's revival, even if it meant death without regret. Go on then, said Hellfire Azura quietly. Those 3 simple words seemed to drain all the strength from him, and after speaking them, he fell silent. He had worked for eons to preserve the stability of the ancient demon realm, even at the cost of abandoning his own people. Yet only after countless ages did he realize that all his efforts had been futile. Worse, they had been wrong. That kind of despair and disillusionment was not something many could endure. Ancient ancestor, I'm not leaving, the ancestral warden said resolutely, kneeling on the ground. You raised me since childhood. I am willing to remain here forever and guard the ancient demon realm. I raised a disciple of flesh and blood, not a puppet, Hellfire Azura said, shaking his head. Go. I can no longer return to the demon race. Let your will stand in my place. When the day of battle comes, kill a few more of them for me. The ancestral warden wiped away tears that had appeared at some unknown point. Then, after bowing deeply to the demon mountain, he finally turned and left. After leaping from the cliff without hesitation, Su Zimo felt the sudden loss of weight. He couldn't control his body at all. The space below the cliff was like falling into a giant bubble, soft and warm, almost cushion-like. Then the bubble burst, and the impact of his fall dissipated. Su Zimo landed steadily on the ground. Looking around, he saw only a desolate plain, and in the distance, a single temple. With no other path to take, he began walking toward it. The ground along the way was cracked and dry, and the void itself was shattered. He reached out to touch the broken space. Normally, such ruptures in reality would heal themselves. After all, destruction by powerful beings was common, and the world possessed its own regenerative force. But here, the space remained broken, unable to mend. Has time itself solidified? Su Zimo murmured, then shook his head. No, even that couldn't last this long. Perhaps this world had been like this for billions of years. He recalled what the ancestral warden had said. This continent was carried over from a destroyed world by the previous infernal lord. That meant the original world had perished, leaving this land without its natural healing force. Destroying it now would be effortless. Ignoring the ruins along the path, Su Zimo walked up to the temple. The structure stood 2 stories tall. Its main gate was painted crimson, and the upper floor was adorned with blue and red hues. On the red doors was a painted circle, and within that circle, a depiction of a Taoist with an immortal's bearing. Su Zimo looked up. The plaque above the entrance had been broken in half, the remaining piece swaying weakly in the air. Heaven blessed. Su Zimo read the single remaining character softly. He pushed the door open. With a deep rumble, a gust of wind swept out, carrying dust and the stale air of ages. Inside, the temple was surprisingly serene. At the center lay a lotus pond, with narrow paths of blue brick stretching on either side. Bodhi trees grew along the edges, lending the place an aura of clarity and righteousness. At the far end stood 3 great halls. The 2 side halls had long since collapsed, leaving only the central one intact, a grand golden structure, solemn and majestic. As Su Zimo crossed the lotus pond, he noticed bubbles rising from the water with soft, blub-blub sounds. Beneath the surface, countless golden fish churned, and suddenly, the pond echoed with the cries of dragons. The golden fish transformed into thousands of divine dragons, soaring into the air and circling through the temple. Who dares trespass into my heaven-blessed temple? A golden dragon thundered, its voice filled with power. Su Zimo stood calm, infernal energy swirling around him. "Your obsession should have long been dispersed," he said evenly. He could tell this dragon was not real, only a lingering will from beings who had once lived here. "Nonsense! Those who invade heaven-blessed temple shall die," the dragon roared, diving at him with unstoppable might. But Su Zimo didn't flinch. The dragon's attack wasn't physical. It struck at his spirit. Yet, with the 9 revolutions God Tower physique protecting him, he had nothing to fear. As the golden dragons faded one by one, Su Zimo continued walking forward. At some point, the once turbulent pond had gone completely dry. Reaching the main hall, he saw that the door was not an ordinary one. It was a demon gate, formed from condensed infernal energy. But this infernal energy was unlike any other. It radiated supremacy, the aura of a monarch among all demonic forces. Su Zimo felt a strange resonance between this energy and his own, as though some unseen force sought to unite them. He stepped closer and slowly extended his right hand, touching the gate with his fingertip. He sensed that if anyone else tried this, something terrifying would happen. But for him, the infernal energy behaved like a docile lamb. His body began to merge into the gate. A moment later, the world spun, the heavens and earth reversed, and he was completely swallowed within. Inside the grand hall, offerings of fruit and incense sat upon a raised altar, but no statue stood there. Below the altar was a single meditation mat, and upon it sat a shadowed figure. No matter how Su Zimo tried, he couldn't see the person's face clearly. "Who are you?" he asked, though he already had a guess. "Call me what your heart tells you," the figure replied with a smile. "The previous infernal lord?" Su Zimo asked. "Previous? To be honest, I dislike that word," the figure said, shaking his head. "There is only one infernal lord. There is no previous or current. My name is Chu Tian. Yours is Su Zimo. Let's speak as such. If this is conversation, then stop acting all mysterious and cool." "I can't even see you clearly," Su Zimo said bluntly. "The demon has no fixed form. Whatever you perceive me as, that is what I am," Chu Tian replied calmly. "You waited here for me? What's your purpose?" Su Zimo asked. "If I remained in the 9 heavens, the heavenly Tao would have discovered me and destroyed me long ago. So I hid here, within a continent torn from a shattered world," Chu Tian explained. "I'm here to pass on my legacy to you. Your arrival in the ancient demon realm proves you've already passed the trials. You deserve the infernal lord's inheritance." "What kind of inheritance?" Su Zimo asked. "A gift of power enough to ensure that, in the path ahead, you can at least protect yourself," Chu Tian said. "But before that, there are a few things I must remind you of." "Go ahead," Su Zimo nodded. "In truth, with every passing eon, the infernal lord is reborn. We are all but the resurrected incarnations of the infernal lord. You are Su Zimo, and you are also the infernal lord. But strictly speaking, Su Zimo is you, while the infernal lord does not have to be you." Chu Tian's tone was solemn as he spoke. Su Zimo frowned slightly, confused. "I don't really understand." "To put it simply," Chu Tian explained, "the infernal lord can take many forms. He can be you, me, or even the infernal lord from countless generations ago. He is an existence that can never truly be extinguished. Understand this, even if we die, the infernal lord will only pass through another cycle of reincarnation, eventually returning once again. But when you or I die, we are gone forever." Upon hearing this, Su Zimo finally understood. He was himself, yet the infernal lord was not bound to him. Even if he died, a new infernal lord would eventually arise. "I see. I understand," Su Zimo nodded. "So from now on, be cautious in everything you do," Chu Tian warned. "You stand against the high heaven itself, one misstep, and you will be doomed beyond redemption." Many fail to grasp this truth. They believe that because the infernal lord reincarnates endlessly, they themselves are immortal. But what they don't understand is that once the wheel turns, The next infernal lord has nothing to do with them. Chu Tian sighed deeply. He himself had once carried that same arrogance. Now, his words were both a warning and a confession. "Thank you," Su Zimo said sincerely. He knew in his heart that his true foundation lay not in his identity as the infernal lord, but in the world he had created. The God world. Even without the title of infernal lord, he would still carve out a sky of his own. The mantle of infernal lord was merely an aid, a tool that could add brilliance to his journey, but not one that determined his path. "What really happened during your heavenly war?" Su Zimo asked curiously. "From what I've learned, when the demons descended, you were already invincible. Why then, after declaring war upon heaven, did you suffer such a devastating defeat? So many dead, others cast into exile." "Ah," Chu Tian sighed deeply. Whatever memory he recalled brought with it both fear and resentment. "I am sorry. Cannot be spoken." "It must not be spoken," Chu Tian said, shaking his head. "Each generation of infernal lord walks a different path. In the end, it is always the demon race that pays the price. Take the inheritance," he said finally. "No matter how far you go, it is your own fortune. But remember this, until you are absolutely certain, do not attempt to challenge heaven." The two of them sat cross-legged. Around them, two surging streams of infernal energy spiraled upward, intertwining in the air. The demonic aura reached the heavens, staining the very void black. At their center, where the energies met, clouds swirled and winds roared, forming a vast, bottomless vortex. Chu Tian formed hand seals. Tremendous power began to gather within his body. It was as if every ounce of his strength was being drawn forth, and his figure grew increasingly faint. Heaven Demon Avatar, Seal Unbound. A five-pointed star-shaped mark formed in the center of his palm. The instant it appeared, even without any deliberate release of power, its sheer presence made the surrounding void boil and shatter. The very continent beneath them trembled violently. "This world can't withstand this power," Chu Tian said gravely. "It will soon collapse. Before that happens, you must complete the inheritance, or the heavenly Tao will detect us." The star mark floated upward, slowly drifting towards Su Zimo before sinking into the center of his brow. In that instant, an ocean of infernal energy surged forth, engulfing everything. Su Zimo felt the world before his eyes dissolve, leaving only endless, boundless darkness and magic. The sea of infernal energy threatened to drown him completely. From the outside, his entire body was now wrapped in a black, opaque cocoon of power. Inside it, nothing could be seen. Chu Tian stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back, watching silently as Su Zimo underwent his transformation. Meanwhile, the continent around them began to collapse piece by piece, massive landmasses breaking apart and falling into the void. Su Zimo's current realm was the fourth stage of the Grand Emperor realm, the life-death stage. There was still a long way to go before reaching Sovereign Lord. Originally, he had planned to progress gradually through comprehension. But with such immense power flooding into him, it was as if all barriers within his body shattered at once. Vast energy coursed through his organs, even nourishing his very soul. His understanding of the Sovereign Lord stage grew deeper and clearer. What was a Sovereign Lord? One who had transcended life and death, supreme above heaven and earth, sovereign within the 9 heavens. Infernal energy surged through his veins as Su Zimo entered a state of complete tranquility. He thought of nothing. Only the infinite rhythm of the Tao surrounded him. Within his meridians, spirit energy roared like waves, endlessly surging, multiplying and expanding by thousands of times. This state lasted for half a day before he slowly opened his eyes. Awe-inspiring divine might filled the space around him, the aura of a sovereign lord. He could feel that his 10th meridian was about to break open. Once it did, he would step into the Saint Sovereign realm. But he was still short, by the faintest sliver of spirit energy. Even so, Su Zimo could sense that his life-death soul was beginning to form. Once it was complete, he would indeed be a Saint Sovereign. The black cocoon around his body began to crack, and a terrifying pressure burst outward like a tornado. Looking inward, Su Zimo saw a glowing five-pointed star pulsing inside him. That star radiated immense power, wild, immeasurable, almost impossible to contain. "How do you feel?" Chu Tian asked with a faint smile. Much stronger," Su Zimo replied. "You've now broken through to Sovereign Lord," Chu Tian said. "But that's not what truly matters. Remember, the true core of this inheritance lies within the five-pointed star in your body." "The core?" Su Zimo frowned slightly. He had thought of testing the star's power, but he could feel just how terrifying it was. He feared his body wouldn't be able to withstand it, so he had refrained from trying. That five-pointed star contains the accumulated power of every infernal lord throughout history, Chu Tian explained. Every time you use it, its strength diminishes. So remember, unless it's a matter of life and death, never use it lightly. Su Zimo nodded in acknowledgement. As they spoke, the last remnants of the continent beneath them completely disintegrated. Having passed on the power of the five-pointed star, Chu Tian's figure grew ever fainter. "Su Zimo, it's now time for me to go," he said softly. "From this moment on, you are the one and only infernal lord. May you carve your way through thorns and storms, and one day become the true overlord of all ancient demons." As his final words fell, Chu Tian's form dissolved completely, vanishing into nothingness. From beneath Su Zimo's feet came a deafening rumble as the entire continent he stood upon began to collapse and sink away. He sighed softly. The sensation of weightlessness vanished as he stepped into the air and flew back toward the cliff from which he had once leapt. Standing atop the cliff again, he looked down as the vast continent below crumbled completely. Explosions echoed like thunder, and billowing clouds of dust rose from the depths like a storm. Su Zimo knew that from this moment onward, the demon race would turn to a new chapter. The former infernal lord was now completely gone. Lifting his gaze toward the battlefield in the distance, he could tell that the fighting there, where Paimon and the others were engaged, was nearing its end. Determining the direction, he flew back toward Dragon Mountain. "You ancient demons are insane, completely suicidal." Xiang Tianhui's furious roar resounded across the skies. Beside him, Xian Mingzi had already been subdued, sealed in place and unable to move. Although the demon race had suffered heavy losses, of the heavenly court's forces, apart from the two saint sovereigns, nearly all had perished. Even the massive celestial planetary warship that had brought them had been blasted into pieces, now lying in ruins across the battlefield. The surviving ancient demons rested upon the mountain, while above, only a few saint sovereigns continued to fight. At that level of combat, the others could do nothing but watch. For saint sovereigns, Paimon and his companions were besieging the heavenly court's last remaining powerhouse, Xiang Tianhui. His aura was growing weaker and weaker. It would not be long before he was subdued as well. At some point, the ancestral warden had also joined the ranks of the demon army. When Su Zimo descended from the heavens, his overwhelming aura made everyone around instinctively lower their heads in awe. "Greetings, my lord," the ancestral warden said first, leading everyone to kneel in unison. "It seems you've finally come to terms with things," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "I have always desired the revival of our demon race," the ancestral warden replied earnestly. "But there are many matters in which I had no choice. Please don't blame the ancient ancestor, the Lord Hellfire Azura. He meant no harm. If he had," Su Zimo said calmly, "he'd already be a corpse. We merely chose different paths. He naively seeks mercy from heaven, while I believe that heaven will never spare us. But now that you've made your decision, devote yourself wholly to the demon race's rebirth." "Yes, my lord," the ancestral warden replied firmly. Ignoring the battle raging above, Su Zimo walked with the others toward the captive Xian Mingzi, who was frozen in place, completely immobilized. "Shall we talk?" Su Zimo asked casually. "Don't waste your breath," Xian Mingzi snorted coldly. "You'll get nothing from me. You may think yourselves triumphant for now, but the Heavenly Court's Real army will soon arrive. When that happens, all of you will be crushed into dust. There's no point in threats, Su Zimo sighed indifferently. When your Heavenly Court truly arrives, we'll see who's ground into dust. For now, one thing's certain, you'll be the first to die. Xian Mingzi struggled desperately against his restraints, but though he was a saint sovereign, he had not yet reached the rank of sage monarch. No matter how hard he fought, he could not break free. Meanwhile, in the sky above, the other saint sovereign's battle was finally reaching its conclusion. Xiang Tianhui's figure was overwhelmed, sealed, and thrown down from the heavens. The force of his fall gouged a massive crater into Dragon Mountain. Paimon and the others descended after him. Red Blade Bull Demon reached into the pit, grabbed Xiang Tianhui as though picking up a chick, and hauled him out. "My lord," Red Blade Bull Demon said, "what shall we do with these two? Saint sovereigns are difficult to kill, aren't they?" Su Zimo mused, stroking his chin. "They are," Paimon nodded. "Each has a life-death soul. Even if you destroy their physical bodies, as long as one soul remains, they can be reborn. I suspect at least one of their life-death souls is hidden within the Heavenly Court." Su Zimo nodded slightly. That much made sense. What safer place could there be than their own Heavenly Court? For over 1 billion years, the Heavenly Court had ruled unchallenged, gazing down upon the 9 heavens with the arrogance of gods. For them, storing a life-death soul within their own sacred towers would be the safest choice imaginable. "In that case," Su Zimo said, "imprison them for now. Without my permission, they'll never leave. Once the 2 of them were placed within the God world, they would lose all power to resist." Xiang Tianhui remained calm, but Xian Mingzi continued to shout defiantly, "Demon scum! The Heavenly Court will never spare you. Your kind will all be exterminated soon enough." Su Zimo waved his hand, opening a portal to the God world. Paimon and the others carried Xiang Tianhui and Xian Mingzi inside. Watching his weary followers, those who had barely survived the brutal battle, Su Zimo pondered for a moment. Finally, he said, "We can't remain in this ancient demon realm. When the Heavenly Court's full army arrives, this place will be destroyed. The demon race cannot yet face heaven directly. We must build our strength first. Go into my particle world and cultivate. There will come a day when you'll have your chance to fight." He deliberately described the God world as a particle world rather than a complete one. After all, even grand emperors could create small pocket worlds, but those had no capacity for growth and would collapse upon their creator's death. Su Zimo's world, however, could expand infinitely. With enough foundation, it might one day surpass even the 9 heavens themselves. Of course, the resources required for such a feat were unimaginable. Even if Su Zimo were slain, the God world would continue to exist independently. "Yes, my lord," the ancient demons replied in unison. As one after another entered the God world, Su Zimo felt no concern. Within that world, the myriad beast realm and the ancient demon realm would see to their organization and training. When only the ancestral warden remained, Su Zimo turned to him. "You'll stay by my side," he said. "I still have matters to attend to here in the God-fiend Abyss Heaven." "As you command, my lord," the ancestral warden replied quickly. "Tell me, have you ever heard of the 9 ancient gods?" Su Zimo asked. "The 9 ancient gods?" The ancestral warden thought for a moment. "I know of the wind god, Tianwu, but I don't know much about him. The era of the ancient gods has long since passed into myth. What remains now are only scattered fragments of legend. Even if one wished to study them, there's little of substance to find." "Tell me what you do know," Su Zimo said. "Tianwu," the ancestral warden began, "had 8 heads, the body of a tiger, and 10 tails. He was the ancient god who governed the Tao of Wind. I once heard that the wind god's descendants might still exist, hidden somewhere within the god-fiend Abyss Heaven." "What is wind?" the ancestral warden began. "It is the meeting of heaven and earth, the product of the sun's lingering warmth and the movement of air. It is said that the god-fiend Abyss Heaven was once nearly destroyed by a single storm. That storm was caused by none other than the wind god, Tianwu. Later, Tianwu vanished without a trace, just like the other ancient gods, evaporated from the 9 heavens as though they had never existed. No one knows where they went. Tens of thousands of years later, another world-ending storm broke out in the god-fiend Abyss Heaven. People believed that Tianwu had returned. But upon investigation, it was discovered that the storm was not caused by Tianwu himself, but by a group of his descendants who carried the bloodline of the wind god. What happened to those descendants? Su Zimo asked. They were hunted down and forced into hiding, the ancestral warden replied. After that, there were no more cataclysmic storms. Over time, those descendants were forgotten. That's troublesome, Su Zimo said quietly. The god-fiend Abyss Heaven is too vast. Without a clear lead, searching for them would be like finding a needle in the sea. It is indeed difficult, the ancestral warden admitted. But we can go to the last place where those descendants were seen. Perhaps we'll find a clue. Where is that? Su Zimo asked. Skywind Valley, the ancestral warden said after a moment's thought. The name seemed almost forgotten to him, as though buried deep in memory. What does my lord seek from the ancient gods? The ancestral warden asked curiously. The exiled ancient demons trapped within the primordial demon cave need the inheritance of an ancient god to break their seals, Su Zimo said directly, not hiding anything. Oh, so my lord has been working all along for the revival of our race, the ancestral warden said in realization, his tone filled with respect and relief. I am willing to give my life for the demon race. No need for oaths of loyalty, Su Zimo smiled, waving his hand. We're all the same. I'm lenient with my own people. As for this ancient demon realm, it's finished. If Hellfire Azura wishes to keep running away from reality, let him run for the rest of his life. He turned and began walking toward the edge of the ancient demon realm, the ancestral warden following close behind. With a native like the ancestral warden to guide him, Su Zimo needed no map. Skywind Valley was not located in the southern region but, according to the ancestral warden, lay somewhere in the poorer northern territories. The ancient demons had their own teleportation formations, so the journey wouldn't take long. During the flight, Su Zimo asked about the current influence of the demon race. As the ancestral warden explained, it was just as Su Zimo had suspected. Though the ancient demons no longer ruled the god-fiend Abyss Heaven openly, they secretly maintained influence within many of its major powers. That certainly saves us a great deal of trouble, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. But we'll need to move before the heavenly court does, the ancestral warden replied. If word spreads that the ancient demon realm has been destroyed, all of the god-fiend Abyss Heaven will likely be hunting for us. True. For now, we can't confront the heavenly court directly, Su Zimo said, narrowing his eyes slightly. But one day we will crush them. Ancestral warden nodded solemnly. They arrived at the ancient demon realm's teleportation formation, a large circular altar inscribed with glowing runes, surrounded by arcs of violet lightning. This is the Thunder Resonance Formation, the ancestral warden explained. Among teleportation formations, it is one of the fastest. It was left to us by an ancient grand emperor of the demon race. Su Zimo nodded. Standing side by side atop the formation, the ancestral warden raised his right hand and activated the formation. Their destination, Skywind Valley. The faint blue arcs of lightning instantly flared, exploding into violent thunder. Countless bolts of lightning surged outward, engulfing the entire formation before swallowing both of their figures. Moments later, they were gone. Not long after their departure, faint footsteps echoed from the distance. A man in red robes approached, his expression solemn, his aura powerful, yet subdued. He knelt before the teleportation formation and bowed 3 times. It was unclear whether his reverence was for the formation itself or for the two who had just departed. Soon after Su Zimo's departure, the skies over the ancient demon realm began to tremble violently. Something immense was descending. Sensing it, the red-robed man looked up, his eyes narrowing. So, it has come at last, he murmured. This time he did not run. Instead, he stepped onto the tallest peak of the ancient demon realm, closest to the heavens, where one could see the entire land. The once glorious and vast ancient demon realm now lay silent and desolate, its vitality drained away. The red-robed man sighed deeply. He had spent millions of years scheming for peace and stability, only to see it all crumble in an instant. The shaking of the skies grew more intense, until it felt as though the entire sky were about to collapse. Finally, with a deafening explosion, the firmament shattered. A blinding divine light poured through the cracks. He looked up but did not move. Descending from the heavens came a massive celestial warship the size of a sun, far larger than any seen before. Around it floated countless planet-sized vessels, each brimming with immense divine power. As they appeared, the void itself froze. The world seemed locked in stillness. From the great warship descended a man clad in battle armor. His face was stern and resolute, his brows thick, his eyes sharp as blades, so sharp that few dared meet his gaze. The armored man saw the red-robed figure standing atop the mountain and paused, slightly surprised, before taking a single step forward. In that instant, thousands of meters vanished between them. "Hellfire Azura," the armored man smiled. "I thought you would have fled with the others." "The peace we agreed upon once," said the red-robed man, Hellfire Azura, the true ruler of the ancient demon realm for eons. "It was your heavenly court that broke it." "Peace," the armored man laughed coldly with disdain. "Peace was nothing more than a comforting illusion for the weak. Did you really think your kind was worthy to negotiate terms with us?" "Yes," Hellfire Azura said softly, nodding. "I was indeed too naive. The heavenly court would never allow our ancient demon race any peace. You're nothing but lapdogs of heaven himself." "You stayed behind to die, didn't you?" the armored man said with a sneer. "Very well, let me grant your wish." "Yes, I stayed to die," Hellfire Azura said quietly. "But before I go, I intend to make the heavenly court pay dearly." He slowly closed his eyes, then opened them again, his voice calm. "Perhaps this is the best final contribution I can make to the demon race." When he finished speaking, he raised his right hand, then plunged it into his own chest. His fingers tore through flesh and bone, and he ripped out his own heart. The heart was black, wrapped in writhing infernal energy. "What is this guy doing?" The man in battle armor frowned, a bad feeling stirring inside him. Divine energy surged through his hands as he attacked Hellfire Azura. Hellfire Azura, however, ignored him completely. He buried the heart in his hand deep into the ground. The earth seemed to come alive, as if it had gained a heartbeat of its own. A heavy thump-thump-thump echoed through the air, shaking the heavens themselves. The armored man's fist landed, blasting Hellfire Azura backward. His body slammed into a nearby mountain, and with a deafening crack, the entire peak split cleanly in two. But Hellfire Azura didn't care. He slowly stood, glancing down at his empty chest. Without a heart, his life force was fading fast. He raised his right hand, his infernal energy now gone, replaced by a thick, primal aura. Moments later, thunderous sounds echoed through the world, like the opening of countless spirit gates. The lands of the ancient demon realm were swallowed by monstrous energy, sealing off the heavens and the void like an unbreakable barrier. "What is this?" The armored man's eyes narrowed. "Hellfire Azura, what exactly are you trying to do?" "To kill you," Hellfire Azura said flatly. He lifted his right hand, and within 100 million square miles, it was as though a colossal invisible hand rose from the ground and grasped the armored man and his army. The man stiffened in shock. Despite the enormous distance between them, he was being effortlessly restrained. "Damn it!" he growled, struggling desperately. His right hand struck out over and over, yet every attack missed. The invisible hand could neither be seen nor touched. None of his techniques worked. This kind of strange, intangible assault was the most terrifying kind of power. Seeing the armored man trapped, two figures leapt down from the nearby celestial ship, one male and one female, both dressed in white immortal robes. Each held a long sword, though their auras were not among the strongest. Even so, they were not ordinary cultivators, they were sword slaves. Within the heavenly court, powerful cultivators often raised sword slaves, children trained from birth to nourish divine blades with their own life force. Each time such a sword was drawn, it would be in perfect, razor-sharp condition. These two were such sword slaves. They stood on either side of the descending steps from the celestial ship, bowing respectfully. Their robes were white as snow, their presence sharp as the sun. The stairway from the ship unfolded, and a white-robed figure slowly stepped down. As he did, the two swords beside him resonated in response. Sword cries filled the sky, and sword intent pierced the heavens. Disciple of the Lord of Heaven, radiant gold. Hellfire Azura's expression hardened when he saw the man. Radiant Gold, one of the heavenly court's most renowned sage monarchs. In the past several millennia, his fame had risen like the sun. After the older generation of sage monarchs withdrew from worldly affairs, he had become the standard-bearer of the new era. He was now among the upper echelons of the heavenly court. "Didn't expect you'd come in person," Hellfire Azura said gravely. "For something this significant, of course I'd come," Radiant Gold replied calmly. "Where is the Infernal Lord?" "I don't know," Hellfire Azura said coldly. "And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you." "Why make this so difficult, Archon?" Radiant Gold said. "For so many years, it was the heavenly court that gave your ancient demon realm its peace. You should learn to be content. We should be allies. Kill the Infernal Lord, and the ancient demon realm will be peaceful again." "You think I'd still believe your bullshit?" Hellfire Azura asked, his tone icy. "To the ancient demons, the moment the Infernal Lord dies, your heavenly court would flatten our realm." "You never believed us anyway," Radiant Gold said with a faint smile. "You think the heavenly court didn't know about your Lich project?" "Enough talk," Hellfire Azura replied. "I, Hellfire Azura, may not have accomplished great deeds in my life, but I've always been loyal to the ancient demon race. If I must die, then let my death at least serve them." He raised both arms toward the sky, his stance like a pillar holding up heaven. The ground and the heavens turned blood-red, an eerie light swallowing all. "So it's true," Radiant Gold said calmly. "You tried to turn your ancient demons into liches. You must have acquired something ancient to do that. At this point, there's no harm in telling you," Hellfire Azura said, his voice tinged with madness. "The truth is, you've been mistaken all along. The Lich race wasn't my invention. They really existed in ancient history, an entire race that vanished with time. And I once obtained the heart of their progenitor." He grinned wildly. "I've nurtured this heart for 10 million years. Now it's time to let the Lich return to the world." As if responding to his words, the earth began to quake violently, and the sky deepened into a sea of blood. Radiant Gold could sense Hellfire Azura's life force waning rapidly. Even as a sage monarch himself, he could feel that the other's power was slipping away. "What the hell are you doing?" Radiant Gold shouted, finally showing a trace of unease. "You'll find out soon enough," Hellfire Azura laughed darkly. "Retreat from the ancient demon realm." Radiant Gold barked to the two sword slaves. They transmitted the command to the celestial ship. The massive vessel roared to life, engines blazing with twin flares of light as it surged toward the domain's edge. Then, boom! A tremendous explosion echoed as the ship suddenly crashed against empty space. The void remained untouched, but the ship shattered in several places. Radiant Gold's eyes widened. This ship was a heavenly court masterpiece, capable of tearing through the void and outracing the speed of light itself. Yet now it had collided with invisible walls and was crumbling apart. "This space is sealed," Hellfire Azura said with a grin. "No one leaves." His life force dimmed again, his body growing translucent, almost ghost-like. "Archon, you're insane," Radiant Gold shouted. "Utterly insane. Is there no one with a normal brain among your demon kind?" He knew what this meant. To become a sage monarch required unimaginable effort, patience, and sacrifice. Every such life was priceless. And now, Hellfire Azura was sacrificing his own life essence to summon something far beyond mortal control. Perhaps death is just another kind of freedom, Hellfire Azura murmured. A few tears slid down his cheeks. The next moment, his body dissolved completely, and from deep beneath the earth of the ancient demon realm, something vast and ancient began to awaken. Heaven and earth trembled as the ground split apart. From within the widening fissures, the shadow of a monstrous being slowly emerged. This creature's head bore 3 horns, one on each side and a third on its forehead. Its body was dark crimson, and most horrifying of all, it had only one eye, an enormous vertical slit gleaming at the center of its face. Its mouth gaped open, lined with countless needle-like teeth, dense and terrible to look upon. Anyone with a fear of clusters would find it unbearable to even glance at. As the earth's trembling grew stronger, more of the monster's enormous body surfaced. It was massive, with rows of barbs running down its back. Its limbs were thick but oddly short, giving it a grotesque, unbalanced shape. When the creature appeared, dust filled the air, the ground quaked violently, and the entire sky turned blood-red. "So this is a primordial lich," Radiant Gold said coldly, his eyes sharp as blades. No one answered him. The primordial lich's gigantic frame turned its single eye toward Radiant Gold, then reached up, clawing toward the celestial ship in the sky. "Damn it!" Radiant Gold muttered. "Sword, come!" The 2 sword slaves beside him quickly raised their blades. With 2 metallic clang sounds, both swords, one long and one short, flew into the air, swirling with radiant light. The long sword gleamed like a river of stars, while the shorter one shimmered faintly within his sleeve, hiding a lethal edge. Radiant Gold shot upward, his aura as a sage monarch bursting forth. With a thunderous boom, his sword intent struck the primordial lich's massive arm. But to his shock, the arm remained completely unscathed. Another explosion followed, this time from the primordial lich itself, as its enormous hand grabbed one end of the celestial ship and tore it apart. Inside the ship, a chain of violent explosions echoed in succession. Sword pierced the heavens, wind command the cosmos. Radiant Gold roared, fury in his voice. The twin blades in his hands unleashed a storm of sword energy, slashing with the force to rend the world itself. The devastating sword intent came crashing down again, cleaving across the primordial lich's chest. The very sky trembled under the blow, the explosion echoing like divine thunder. But the creature didn't even flinch. It continued its rampage, tearing the massive celestial ship completely in 2. Panic erupted. Countless heavenly court cultivators scrambled to escape from the wreckage. At first, most of them had remained hidden, uninterested in the ancient demon realm since the Infernal Lord wasn't present. Now, with their stronghold destroyed, they had no choice but to show themselves. Among the survivors, aside from a number of Grand Emperors and Saint Sovereigns, the 2 most powerful auras belonged to Radiant Gold and an elderly man seated in midair. As the celestial ship was ripped apart, everyone else retreated in chaos. Only the old man remained motionless, sitting cross-legged in the void, utterly calm. The primordial lich frowned and threw a punch at him. The strike landed squarely, and a brilliant protective barrier instantly flared around the old man. Still, the force was immense. The blow sent him flying thousands of meters backward. He rose slowly, brushing dust from his robes. "When did such a creature appear in the ancient demon realm?" he asked Radiant Gold. "I fear its strength already surpasses that of a sage monarch." "Perhaps," Radiant Gold replied grimly, "but it's still far from an infinite Tao being. A true infinite Tao cultivator could crush us both with a single finger." That was the terror of an infinite Tao cultivator, the strongest existence in the world, having opened 11 meridian gates. As for the rumored 12th meridian gate, it was said to exist only in myth. No one had ever witnessed it. "You haven't noticed?" Radiant Gold said. "This primordial lich is not truly alive. Hellfire Azura sacrificed his life to awaken it using the heart he nurtured. Each of its attacks consumes its own life force. Once that energy runs out, it will die again naturally. So what you're saying is we shouldn't fight it head-on, the old man said, nodding. We just have to exhaust its life energy. The two took their positions, one to the left and one to the right, circling the primordial lich. Meanwhile, the other members of the Heavenly Court joined in, launching support attacks from afar. The primordial lich seemed enraged by their persistence. It let out a deafening roar, and its crimson skin deepened to a molten, blood-like red. Its entire body seemed to boil from within. "Careful!" Radiant Gold shouted. "Get back!" But it was already too late. The primordial lich's body swelled even larger, and from its core radiated waves of violent infernal energy in every direction. Radiant Gold and the old man narrowly avoided the blast, but the others weren't so lucky. They were struck by the demonic surge and immediately immobilized, frozen where they stood. The primordial lich's 3 horns erupted with blinding red light, which spiraled upward into the sky. There, it formed a blood-colored vortex that began pulling everything toward it with terrifying force. Though neither Radiant Gold nor the old man knew exactly what would happen to those consumed, the power of the vortex was unmistakably dreadful. "What do we do?" Radiant Gold asked, his tone strained. "Combine our strength and strike together," the old man barked. "We must be able to hurt it." Radiant Gold nodded. He lifted his 2 swords, the long one in his right hand, the short one in his left. Behind him, his true fate spirit manifested, an ethereal figure mirroring his every motion, raising its own sword alongside his. He moved deliberately, slowly. When his long sword fell, its light vanished into the heavens, leaving behind a cascade of sword intent that poured down like a silver river. Meanwhile, the old man remained seated. In his palm, a brilliant orb of energy was forming, an ever-shifting sphere woven from countless elemental primal daaths. Gold, wood, water, fire, and earth, mixed with wind, thunder, and shadow. He hurled the orb forward. The sphere and Radiant Gold sword intent collided with the primordial lich simultaneously. Another world-shaking explosion followed. Even the monstrous body of the primordial lich was blasted backward through the air. But when Radiant Gold looked up again, the vortex above hadn't stopped spinning. Many of the Heavenly Court's cultivators had already been sucked into it, their cries echoing through the blood-colored sky. "My lord, save us!" The 2 men exchanged grim looks. They had no other options left. "Use the celestial talisman," the old man said suddenly. "That was granted to us by the Lord of Heaven himself," Radiant Gold protested. "It's meant for moments of mortal peril, only when there's no other way." They both knew how precious that talisman was. It was a true life-saving treasure. "Think about it," the old man replied. "The infernal lord has already escaped. We've gained nothing from this mission. If we return to the Lord of Heaven empty-handed and the Heavenly Court suffers massive losses, do you think his anger will spare us?" He paused, his tone sharp. "We can ask for another talisman, but the dead cannot be brought back." Radiant Gold looked up at the sky, his expression shifting between gloom and uncertainty. Many of the Heavenly Court's Grand Emperors had already been sucked into the vortex. These were Grand Emperors, beings who were invincible in the lower worlds. Yet now, swallowed by the vortex, they vanished without a sound. Seeing that the situation had grown hopeless, Radiant Gold gave a cold snort and said, "Then let us summon the celestial talisman." He stretched out his right hand, and a powerful force began to gather in his palm. His eyes suddenly widened, 2 beams of golden light bursting forth and illuminating the energy forming in his hand. That energy started to twist and transform until, after a short while, it took the shape of a rune. The rune was strange, its markings incomprehensible, like tadpole script, curling and flowing across its surface. But the moment the celestial talisman appeared, the entire world around them was suppressed. "Annihilate!" Radiant Gold uttered 2 words and threw the talisman outward. Once it left his hand, Radiant Gold collapsed to the ground, utterly drained. Sweat poured down his face, and he didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. He was a sage monarch, normally an unmatched existence, yet merely activating the talisman a little had left him like this. If one wanted to unleash the talisman's full power, only an infinite Tao cultivator could do so. But infinite Tao cultivators had not yet openly appeared in this age. Sage monarchs were already considered invincible. As the celestial talisman flew forward, it swept across everything in its path. Even though the Lich had sealed the surrounding void, that void was still shattered apart, everything within destroyed. The talisman rose into the air, hovering high above and radiating vast divine light. The void, once dominated by the Lich, was now completely subdued. Even the Lich himself was pinned down, unable to move, while the vortex above his head vanished without a trace. "It worked," Radiant Gold said with a faint look of relief, though there was pain in his expression. "What a pity to waste a celestial talisman. These ancient demons are truly hateful." "Radiant Gold, something's wrong," said the old man beside him, frowning as he stared forward. The Lich, though trapped in place, seemed to grow stronger instead of weaker. His already blood-red skin deepened in color, becoming an even more ghastly crimson. The veins beneath his skin bulged visibly, and his massive body began to swell like an inflating balloon. "What is that creature trying to do?" Radiant Gold asked, confused. Normally, anyone suppressed by the celestial talisman would be completely powerless unless they were an infinite Tao cultivator. "This is bad, he's going to self-destruct." The old man's face changed as realization struck. He shouted, "Everyone, leave the ancient demon realm immediately." The ancient demon realm had been sealed by the Lich, preventing anyone from escaping before. Now that the celestial talisman had taken control, they could finally move freely again. All the Heavenly Court members fled in panic, but it was already too late. The Lich's body, having swelled to its limit, exploded. The roar that followed sounded as if it could tear a hole in the heavens themselves. Even without the destructive force, the sound alone made many Grand Emperors vomit blood, their souls wounded. When the explosion spread, everything was obliterated. A mushroom cloud bloomed across the sky, fire flaring and waves of flame surging outward. Even Radiant Gold and the old sage monarch fled in terror, not daring to hesitate for an instant. The explosion within the ancient demon realm raged on for 3 full hours. When it finally ended, and all the dust and flames were gone, the Heavenly Court survivors regained their senses. They turned toward where the ancient demon realm had once been. Originally hidden within the void, it now no longer existed. The void itself had been burned away and reduced to nothingness. That ancient existence, which had ruled the god-fiend abyss heaven for countless ages, was finally gone. The ancient demon realm had been destroyed, the Lich's self-destruction powerful enough to erase everything. But outside, Radiant Gold's face looked grim. He was covered in dust, his robe torn and tattered, no trace of the sage monarch's former dignity left. "What are our losses?" he asked coldly. "Of the 18 million Grand Emperors and 10 Saint Sovereigns who came with us, at least 50% are dead." One of the Grand Emperors answered hesitantly. Hearing that, Sage Monarch Radiant Gold's heart trembled and he almost collapsed. This was one of the greatest losses the Heavenly Court had suffered in a billion years. Since the end of the Demon Descent era, the Heavenly Court had risen to near-total dominance over the world. Across the 9 heavens, all powers, no matter how great, had to kneel before them. Yet now, such heavy losses had struck for the first time. "Damn it! I knew keeping those ancient demons alive would come back to haunt us," the old man said angrily. "We should have wiped them all out from the start." "That was the Holy Progenitor's decision. Do not speak recklessly," Radiant Gold warned sharply. "No matter the outcome, the Holy Progenitor's decree could never be questioned." "So what do we do now?" the old man asked helplessly. "We can't just return and report failure like this. Send word across the entire god-fiend abyss heaven," Radiant Gold said through gritted teeth. "Place a bounty on every demon. Whoever kills a demon may come to the Heavenly Court for a reward. A great reward." Outside Skywind Valley, there stood Skywind City. Wind follows fate, sky follows destiny. These words were carved on the walls flanking the city gate. At that moment, Su Zimo and the ancestral warden stood before the gate. They had arrived through a teleportation formation, but the formation for Skywind Valley was located outside the city, not within. Skywind City differed from other places in one remarkable way. The wind here had form. It was said that the wind itself was formless, without color or shape. That was true for ordinary wind, which lacked any special attributes. But here, the wind merged with all kinds of elemental properties, and thus it appeared in many colors. The city had wind in every season, though no one knew why. "Where is Skywind Valley?" Su Zimo asked as he gazed at the city ahead. "When I came here before, this place was still Skywind Valley. How has it become a city now?" The ancestral warden said in surprise. Then he added, "Let's ask around. We haven't paid much attention to this region, but something must have changed." Su Zimo nodded slightly. The legacy of the ancient god was too important. He could not afford carelessness. The two entered the city and found a tavern. If one wished to gather information, taverns were the best places, full of all kinds of people from every walk of life. Wind Rising Ape. That was the name on the tavern sign, just 3 characters, but the structure itself was striking. Built like a colossal ape holding up the sky, it towered 100 stories high and was one of the most eye-catching buildings in all of Skywind City. As soon as the two stepped inside, they could feel the lively bustle and prosperity within. The tavern covered a vast area, bustling with people and filled with lively noise. Upon entering, it felt like stepping into a marketplace. "Honored guest, your startling immortal dragon tongue and jade nectar celestial wine, 2 caddies of tiger meat, and bring 3 more legs of flying cloud beast." Voices echoed endlessly through the tavern. But what stood out most was that the servers were not ordinary people. Each one of them was a cultivator at the Empyrean Meridian realm. That was astonishing. In the lower worlds, anyone at that level was already considered powerful. They might not rank among the highest-tier combatants, but they were still formidable. And yet here they were just waiters in a tavern. "What a luxurious establishment," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "Indeed. It seems Skywind City is quite an interesting place," the ancestral warden replied with a grin. "But, my lord, we should be cautious. The Heavenly Court likely already knows about what happened in the ancient demon realm. It won't be long before we're wanted men. Staying here too long would be unwise. It's only because this is the god-fiend Abyss Heaven that the Heavenly Court dares to act so brazenly," Su Zimo said coldly. The Heavenly Court's strength was no secret. But throughout eternity, countless mighty beings had risen. Being powerful was not the same as being invincible. In the Mirage Tides Heaven, there was the Lord of Death. In the Ghost God Heaven, there was the End of Calamities. In the Inferno Crucible Heaven, there was the one known as Flame Bearer. Across the 9 heavens, every realm had its own true overlord. The Heavenly Court would never dare to descend openly with such arrogance anywhere else. Only the god-fiend Abyss Heaven, once the site of the ancient prison, was a place where the Heavenly Court could act so overtly, issuing public decrees and bounties, forcing even the ancient demons to yield. As the two spoke, a waiter approached them with a smile. "Honored guests, what can I do for you?" he asked politely. "We'd like a quiet room," the ancestral warden said directly. "This way, please," the waiter said, motioning ahead and leading them. They ascended a grand stairway that moved on its own, carrying them smoothly up to the 100th floor. The 100th floor was like a different world. The noise of the lower levels vanished completely, replaced by deep tranquility and a faint scent of sandalwood in the air. Inside the private rooms, the walls were painted with images of mythical beasts, azure dragons flicking their tails, black ants capturing the heavens, and 3-eyed purple wolves. The atmosphere was one of nobility, with spirit energy surging through the air as though they were bathing in an ocean of vitality. It was refreshing and serene. "A fine place indeed," Su Zimo remarked. "As long as you're satisfied," the waiter said with a smile. "Your food will be delivered shortly." I'll remain at the door. Please call for me if you need anything. Su Zimo nodded and entered the private room. The interior was as lavishly decorated as the corridor outside. That waiter is quite perceptive, Su Zimo noted. He's at the Empyrean Meridian realm, the ancestral warden explained. He couldn't sense our true cultivation, so he must have guessed our status. It saves us unnecessary trouble. The heavenly court must have descended already, the ancestral warden added with a sigh as he sat down. I can't help worrying about my master. He was thinking of Hellfire Azura. That man had raised him from childhood, more like a father than a teacher. If he's left the ancient demon realm, he should be safe, Su Zimo said. Knowing him, he'd rather die in battle than flee, the ancestral warden said, shaking his head. He loved that land deeply. That's no disgrace to his title as an infernal archon, Su Zimo said quietly. If he's already fallen, I ask that you not blame him, my lord, the ancestral warden pleaded. If I meant to blame him, I'd have killed him back in the ancient demon realm, Su Zimo said flatly. I'm not as petty as you think. Toward enemies, I'm ruthless. I could slaughter millions without blinking. But those who follow me, I always treat with generosity. No matter his faults, he once fought and bled for me. It was my mistake, the ancestral warden said, bowing his head in guilt. As they spoke, the waiter knocked on the door and entered, carrying a tray full of dishes, the tavern's specialties. The wine hadn't even been opened yet, but its rich fragrance already filled the room. Waiter, let me ask you something, Su Zimo said. Of course, sir, the waiter replied. We came seeking Skywind Valley. Why is there only a city here and no valley? Su Zimo asked. Oh, you're here for Skywind Valley too? The waiter said with a smile. Why? There are others? The ancestral warden asked quickly. There didn't used to be, but lately many people have come looking for it. I've seen at least 10 groups myself, including disciples of the Imperial Lineage Immortal Sect. The waiter said, still smiling. Well, that's interesting, Su Zimo muttered, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Ordinarily, matters concerning ancient gods were far beyond mortal reach. Even legends about them were scarce. No need to be surprised, sir, the waiter said, noticing Su Zimo's expression. There's a rumor going around lately that a divine treasure has appeared in the ruins of Skywind Valley. That's why so many have come. A divine treasure? Su Zimo frowned. You still haven't told me. Where exactly is Skywind Valley? To tell the truth, I don't know, the waiter admitted. A long time ago, this really was Skywind Valley. But hundreds of years ago, the valley was destroyed, and Skywind City was built upon its ruins. The name was kept only because of the site's history. Who governs Skywind City? Who built it? The ancestral warden asked curiously. The current city lord is Situ Menghu, the waiter replied. As for who built the city, I don't know. But I do know this. Skywind City is under the jurisdiction of the Violet Mist Holy Lands. Realizing he might have said too much, the waiter smiled and added, Please, enjoy your meal before it gets cold. I'll take my leave. Su Zimo gestured for him to go, watching as the waiter quietly exited. How much do you know about the Violet Mist Holy Lands? Su Zimo asked calmly. 3 million years ago, a peerless genius appeared in the god-fiend abyss heaven, the ancestral warden said after a moment's thought. In that era, none could rival him. In less than 1,000 years, he ascended to the rank of immortal monarch, stunning the entire realm. What's most remarkable is that he was a rogue cultivator, not affiliated with any power. Countless factions tried to recruit him, even our ancient demon race. Ancestral Warden paused briefly, then continued explaining the origin of the Violet Mist Holy Lands. But that peerless figure refused them all and instead founded his own sect, the Violet Mist Holy Lands. For a time, it caused quite an uproar, and the eyes of the entire god-fiend abyss heaven turned toward it. But the glory didn't last. Less than 1,000 years after its founding, news spread that the Peerless One was dead. He's dead? Su Zimo asked curiously. How did he die? No one knows, the ancestral warden replied. The Violet Mist Holy Lands only announced that he was dead, but the cause of death was never revealed. Without that peerless figure, the Violet Mist Holy Lands became a phoenix fallen into the water. Its former glory vanished overnight. The surrounding major forces joined together, seizing its treasures and nearly wiping the sect out entirely. Since then, the ancestral warden continued, the Violet Mist Holy Lands has closed its gates and withdrawn from the world. Over time, people simply forgot about it. You remember it quite clearly, Susimo said. To tell the truth, the ancestral warden said with a bitter smile, I was one of those who tried to recruit that peerless man. Back then, I was arrogant and proud. As a member of the ancient demon race, I represented the ruling power of the entire God-fiend Abyss Heaven. Countless people wanted to join us. I thought his recruitment was a sure thing, but he turned us down. I never expected that after so many years, the Violet Mist Holy Lands would still exist, hidden from the world, forgotten by most, and yet somehow re-emerge to build this Skywind City. Then tell me, Susimo said, tapping his fingers lightly on the table, lost in thought. Why would they build Skywind City? My lord suspects. They're scheming something? The ancestral warden's eyes brightened as he caught on. Could it be they're also after the ancient god's inheritance? That I don't know, Susimo said with a faint smile. After we finish eating, we'll go pay a visit to Skywind City's lord. Ancestral warden nodded. They tasted a few dishes, then left the tavern. The service had been excellent, but the price was equally astonishing. Still, for the likes of Susimo and the ancestral warden, such expenses were nothing. They arrived at the city lord's mansion, though the lord was not someone ordinary visitors could see. Finally, after the ancestral warden had given a sound beating to the guards at the gate, they learned that the city lord, He Chongkong, had gone to the Azure Dragon altar. The two set out for the altar. The Azure Dragon altar was within Skywind City, not far away. When they arrived, they saw a huge crowd gathered, perhaps not a literal sea of people, but close to it. The Azure Dragon altar has opened. Who knows what treasures we might obtain this time? I heard that long ago, the Scarlet Blood Saint Sovereign obtained a divine artifact from the Azure Dragon altar and used it to ascend to the Saint Sovereign realm. Maybe we'll get lucky too. I don't dare dream of becoming a Saint Sovereign. I'd be content with even the smallest opportunity, as long as I don't go home empty-handed. Exactly. Just don't come up empty. Listening to the chatter, the ancestral warden asked around to learn more about the altar. Though the Azure Dragon altar wasn't widely known, every time it opened, it was a grand event for Skywind City. Legend said the altar was connected to the celestial realm, a paradise filled with treasures. From time to time, treasures would emerge from the altar. These items varied in kind and power. Some were so extraordinary that even Saint Sovereigns coveted them. But the Azure Dragon altar belonged to no one. Anyone could compete for its treasures. Interesting, Susimo said with a nod. He didn't lack treasures himself. The sword on his back, Shadow Tyrant, was already unmatched among countless divine weapons. He looked up. The area below the altar was crowded, but fewer people stood near the altar itself. The altar was built with dozens of ascending steps, flanked by 2 dragon statues. The statues were vivid and lifelike, one poised to soar skyward, the other coiled in a majestic spiral. At the top stood a large pavilion, ancient in design. Every beam and pillar radiated a timeless aura. One glance was enough to know it was of great antiquity. I heard Skywind City was built less than 10,000 years ago, the ancestral warden said, narrowing his eyes. This altar must predate the city. Someone must have moved it here through great magical power. More than mere magic, Susimo said with a faint smile as he studied it. It's an extraordinary thing, though to me it's useless. With that, he started walking toward the steps. He Chongkong was inside the pavilion. But before Susimo could ascend, a man in white stepped in front of him. Friend, you must not be from Skywind City, the man said politely. What of it? Susimo asked. When the Azure Dragon altar opens, everyone is allowed to try for the treasures, but the high-ranking figures go first. Only after they're done can the rest of us common cultivators step up. If you rush in now and offend them, you might not leave here alive, the man said kindly. I appreciate your concern, Susimo said, shaking his head. But those people hardly qualify as high-ranking in my eyes. He continued up the steps. The onlookers, seeing someone new approach, began murmuring again. They assumed he must belong to some powerful faction. Yet no one recognized him. Who's that? Someone asked. Never seen him. Neither have I. Maybe just some fool pretending to be important. Inside the pavilion, several gazes turned toward Susimo as he entered. May I ask which Taoist brother graces us with his presence? A young man with a sword across his chest said coldly, his eyes as sharp as blades. Even if I told you, you wouldn't know me, Susimo said with a faint smile. The swordsman's eyes narrowed slightly, a trace of killing intent flashing within them. Susimo ignored him and found a seat. The ancestral warden noticed the young man's expression and realized trouble might be brewing. He gave a cold snort. The sound cracked like thunder, shaking the swordsman's very soul. His mind reeled, his spirit nearly split apart, and blood rose to his throat, but he forced it down and swallowed it hard. Third brother, step back, a voice said calmly from nearby. The Azure Dragon altar is open. Anyone may come here. The swordsman's angry expression vanished at once, and he retreated quietly. Only then did the ancestral warden notice the blue-robed young man behind him. The man leaned casually against one of the pavilion's pillars, a painted folding fan covering his face. His robe was ocean blue, and a faint fragrance drifted from him. Now he stood and lowered the fan, revealing a faint smile. The Azure Dragon altar draws all manner of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, he said pleasantly. My brother may have offended you. Please don't take it to heart, fellow Taoist. He's not qualified to offend me, Susimo said evenly. The swordsman's face changed, but he held his tongue. The Azure Dragon altar has opened, Susimo said calmly. Which of you will go first? A voice spoke from the side. The Azure Dragon altar, back then, the Scarlet Blood Saint Sovereign obtained a drop of supreme blood here and ultimately ascended to the Saint Sovereign realm. I wonder, is there any pattern to it? The speaker was a young man in white, holding a folding fan and smiling as he spoke. His name was Baijiga, the young sect master of the Heaven Leaf sect. He addressed a red-robed youth standing opposite him. That young man carried a massive saber on his back, his sharp eyes curved like an eagle's, his nose high and straight. The crimson character embroidered on his robe already revealed his identity. He was from the Scarlet Blood God realm, the very sect founded by the Scarlet Blood Saint Sovereign himself. His name was Qi Qianyu. Brother Bai, that question doesn't make much sense, Qi Qianyu said. If there were a pattern to claiming treasures from the Azure Dragon altar, my Scarlet Blood God realm would have long since dominated the entire God-fiend abyss heaven. We wouldn't be where we are today. That's true, another added. Back then, the Violet Mist Saint Sovereign spent unimaginable effort to snatch the Azure Dragon altar down from beyond the heavens. There's no pattern to its treasures. Wouldn't you agree, City Lord he? At that, a middle-aged man seated deeper within the pavilion slowly turned around. He had remained silent until now, accompanied only by an old woman at his side. Still, since these youths were all heirs of nearby major sects, he did not dare take them lightly. This man was He Chongkong, the city lord of Skywind City. He had governed the city for over a century, humble in manner, generous in heart, and well-regarded throughout the region. Who can say for sure about such matters? He Chongkong said mildly. As for whether there's a pattern to obtaining treasures from the Azure Dragon altar, my Purple Mist Holy Land does not know. But if any of you can discover one, then naturally, the treasure will be yours. As the group chatted, a commotion suddenly rose outside the pavilion. Meng Luanhui is here. What? Why would he come here? The ancient Samsara God realm is a holy land in its own right. Do they really care about our humble Azure Dragon altar? Exactly. The ancient Samsara god realm already has everything they could want. Why come and fight us for treasures? The crowd surrounding the altar buzzed with speculation. A grand palanquin was being carried up the steps. It was made of ancient dustwood, radiating Taoist aura, and draped in embroidered silk woven with rivers and mountains, light shimmering from every thread. Even the bearers of the palanquin were cultivators of the god Meridian realm, a testament to the exalted status of the person within. Meng Luanhui, what is he doing here? Someone inside the pavilion said coldly, clearly unwelcoming of his arrival. Who is Meng Luanhui? Su Zimo asked the ancestral warden. I don't know much, the ancestral warden replied. He's the heir of the ancient Samsara god realm, said to be the person of this era closest to becoming a saint sovereign. 10 years ago, he'd already reached the god unity stage. I've also heard, the ancestral warden added, that Meng Luanhui might be the reincarnation of some ancient powerhouse. Interesting, Su Zimo said, stepping to the edge of the pavilion to get a better view. Before them, the azure dragon altar spread out in magnificent splendor. A roaring waterfall cascaded down in front of it, plunging thousands of feet, yet making no sound at all. Above the waterfall floated the head of an azure dragon, suspended in midair, emanating a majestic dragon's might. The dragon's head was enormous, nearly filling the entire sky. It was connected to the pavilion itself, and its exhaled breath radiated scorching heat. Su Zimo walked step by step toward He Changkong. As he neared, the old woman stepped forward to block him. I wish to speak with the city lord, Su Zimo said with a calm smile. The old woman said nothing, but turned to He Changkong for instruction. It's all right, Nanny, He Changkong said with a genial smile. All guests are welcome. The old woman stepped aside. He Changkong looked at Su Zimo and asked, And how should I address you, young sir? Su Zimo, he replied. I came to ask the city lord about something. Please speak freely, He Changkong said with a nod. I came here seeking Skywind Valley, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. Yet all I found is Skywind City. I wonder, are the two related? It's just a coincidence of names, nothing more, He Changkong said, shaking his head. You overthink it, young sir. And the original Skywind Valley? Su Zimo pressed. I'm afraid I don't know, He Changkong said lightly. When we built this city, this area was already a wasteland. Why the sudden interest, young sir? I'm searching for the ancient wind god's inheritance, Su Zimo said, making no effort to hide it. His gaze locked firmly onto He Changkong's eyes. The ancient wind god's inheritance? He Changkong repeated, his expression mildly puzzled. I've never heard of such a thing, though lately, there have been rumors about some so-called divine treasury. Perhaps that's what you're referring to. If the city lord doesn't know, then I've troubled you enough, Su Zimo said with a polite nod. He turned to leave, but as he did, He Changkong's eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Go investigate his background, he murmured. The old woman beside him disappeared silently from the pavilion. Master, how did it go? The ancestral warden asked quickly when Su Zimo returned. He Changkong definitely knows something, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. He just won't say it. But that's fine so long as he knows. I only fear if he truly knew nothing. As they spoke, Meng Luanhui had already stepped out of his palanquin. He wore an exquisite robe, unlike any common garment. Its surface shimmered with starlight, as though a galaxy had been draped across his shoulders. At his waist hung a sword. Though the blade remained sheathed, the two characters engraved on the hilt, Heaven's Ward, were enough to strike fear into countless hearts. It was the Heaven's Ward sword, ranked 76th among all Grand Thousand treasures. Well, well, Meng Luanhui said with a light laugh as he approached. So many of you gathered here, what a lively scene. Several young geniuses immediately yielded their seats to him. The pavilion was vast, yet its seating limited. And though they too were considered prodigies, none dared compare themselves to Meng Luanhui. Behind him stood the ancient Samsara god realm, guarded by two saint sovereigns. Meng Luanhui sat down arrogantly, unbothered by the chilly silence that followed. "This azure dragon altar's treasure will be mine," he said with a smile. "Treasures depend on fate," someone nearby said calmly. "Fate? What nonsense!" Meng Luanhui sneered. "If I, Meng Luanhui, want something and the azure dragon altar doesn't yield it, then I'll destroy it myself." "How arrogant can one man be?" someone muttered under their breath. "Let him," another whispered. "With the ancient Samsara god realm's power, only the ancient demon race can challenge them in the entire god-fiend abyss heaven. He's earned the right to be arrogant." "Meng Luanhui," He Changkong said, "the azure dragon altar will open soon." "When exactly?" Meng Luanhui asked. "When one more person arrives," He Changkong replied. "Please be patient, young Master Meng." Although He Changkong was clearly displeased, as the lord of the city, he still replied with a courteous smile. "Wait for who? Who could possibly be qualified to make me wait?" Meng Luanhui said coldly. "The saintess of the Violet Mist Holy Lands," He Changkong said calmly. "Violet Mist Holy Lands? A third-rate sect dares to call itself a holy land." Meng Luanhui sneered, showing no restraint. "Meng Gongzi, this azure dragon altar belongs to my Violet Mist Holy Lands," He Changkong warned, his tone turning faintly sharp. "You'd best mind your words." "What? Is that a threat?" Meng Luanhui smirked. "Believe it or not, with a single order from me, both this azure dragon altar and your entire Skywind City will belong to the ancient Samsara god realm." Hearing the other's arrogant tone, He Changkong said nothing more. He simply closed his eyes. There was no point in arguing with someone like this. It would only deepen the conflict. From the moment Meng Luanhui appeared, the atmosphere inside the pavilion had gone cold. Everyone spoke less, wary of provoking him. After some time, He Changkong suddenly opened his tightly shut eyes and murmured, "She's here." An instant later, a sharp sound of air bursting echoed from the distance. Before anyone could even react, a figure had already appeared inside the pavilion. The newcomer stood 7 feet tall, eyes bright as torches, her brows sharp like blades, and her long black hair flowed freely despite the still air. Though she was a woman, there was a resolute heroism about her that rivaled any man's. Her face was slender, with a few locks of hair falling loosely down her cheek, while the rest was tied neatly behind her head. She wore a tight-fitting blue robe that accentuated her graceful yet commanding presence. As she arrived, He Changkong immediately rose to greet her. "Saintess," he said respectfully. "Hey, so you're the Violet Mist Saintess? You sure made us wait long enough." Meng Luanhui complained impatiently. The woman turned her head and glanced at him but showed no interest. She ignored him completely. "Activate the Azure Dragon Altar," she said calmly. He Changkong quickly nodded and approached the enormous dragon head. Handling it with great care, he drew out a black box from his robes. When the lid opened with a faint creak, a beam of green light burst forth, spreading across the sky until it seemed to blanket all of heaven and earth. Within that light came faint echoes of an ancient dragon's roar. The giant dragon head before them opened its glowing eyes, as if awakening from a long slumber. "The void and time itself are starting to move," Su Zimo murmured. "What did you say, Master?" the ancestral warden asked in confusion. "Until now, the space-time around the Azure Dragon altar was sealed," Su Zimo replied. "That can't be," the ancestral warden frowned. "The waterfall has been flowing all this time. How could it be sealed?" "That's because that isn't ordinary water." Su Zimo shook his head. "If I'm not mistaken, that water is called drowning water. Its flow is only a form, it doesn't truly move." "This brother has sharp eyes," came a gentle voice. It was the Violet Mist Saintess, who had quietly walked over. She smiled faintly. "Indeed, this is drowning water. But within the entire God-fiend abyss heaven, there are fewer than 5 people who recognize it. I'm not boasting when I say your knowledge is impressive." Su Zimo chuckled softly. How did he know? In truth, during his inheritance of the previous Infernal Lord's legacy, He had not only received power but also fragments of memory. Those memories contained countless events from the former Infernal Lord's life, though some were intentionally erased, perhaps to prevent Su Zimo from being influenced by them. After all, every being has its own secrets. Still, among those inherited memories were details about drowning water. "Where do you come from, sir?" the saintess asked again. "Just a wandering cultivator," Su Zimo replied. "You can't fool me," she said with a slight smile as she leaned closer. "I can sense the ancient demon bloodline within you." Su Zimo didn't react, but the ancestral warden beside him stiffened slightly. At their level, they had long since learned to conceal their true nature. Unless the other party was vastly stronger, no one should have been able to perceive it. "Don't be nervous," the woman said softly. "I mean no harm. My name is Ziyen." "I'm not nervous," Su Zimo smiled. "But I must admit, I'm surprised. The legendary peerless talent of this generation turns out to be a woman." The moment he said that, Ziyan's expression changed drastically. Yet almost immediately, she composed herself and said evenly, "I don't know what you're talking about." "It's fine," Su Zimo said lightly. "If you don't, just pretend I never said anything." Ziyen gave him a long, searching look before turning and walking away. Outside the pavilion, the Azure Dragon's transformation was reaching its end. The sound of the waterfall resumed, this time truly flowing water. Mist rose from below, enveloping the massive dragon head in a veil of ethereal light, making the entire scene look like a heavenly realm. Then, from the dragon's mouth, a long circular path began to extend outward. The surface of the path was riddled with countless holes of various sizes. Those who had been here before instantly understood what they were seeing, while newcomers could only stare in astonishment. "Let this young master try first," Meng Luanhui declared arrogantly, stepping forward. He Chongkong seemed about to stop him, but Ziyen shook her head slightly. Meng Luanhui approached the circular altar and asked, "How does one claim the treasure?" "You may choose any hole at will," He Chongkong explained reluctantly. "Use whatever means you wish. As long as the altar acknowledges you, the treasure will be yours. It's a matter of fate, it cannot be forced." "Humph, I, Meng Luanhui, command the 9 heavens. What's a mere azure dragon altar's acknowledgement to me?" he said disdainfully. He extended his right hand and placed it on one of the holes. Blue spirit energy began to surge from his palm, flowing into the mysterious formation. "That's the samsara force of the ancient samsara god realm," someone whispered nearby. "At the dawn of chaos, reincarnation divided the world. Every life and death began from it. Yes, their samsara force is unique. It's said that at its peak, it can even reverse the heavens themselves." Everyone's eyes turned to Meng Luanhui, some with envy. Though his talent was only average, his noble birth gave him advantages beyond imagination. Even a pig raised in such a sect could become a powerhouse. As the samsara force spread, the entire Azure Dragon altar began to tremble violently. The tremors grew stronger and stronger, until, at the height of Meng Luanhui's pride, everything suddenly stopped. The shaking ceased. The flow of samsara force vanished, as if swallowed by something unseen. "That's it." Meng Luanhui's expression froze. "Where's my treasure?" "It seems young Master Meng is not fated with this Azure Dragon altar," He Chongkong said with a faint smile. "Utter nonsense. With my unparalleled talent, how could I possibly be without fate?" Meng Luanhui shouted angrily. The samsara force surged from his body, and in a fit of rage, he threw a punch straight at the Azure Dragon altar. A thunderous boom echoed across the sky as the altar shattered completely. But the moment it broke apart, a beam of emerald light burst forth from within. That light blazed like a river of stars, unstoppable and destructive, as though it meant to annihilate everything around it. In an instant, the green light struck Meng Luanhui, engulfing him completely. His screams pierced the air as his entire being, from true life essence to divine soul, and even his flesh, began to corrode and disintegrate bit by bit. What is this?" someone cried out in shock. The Azure Dragon altar had stood in Skywind City for 1,000 years, opened countless times, yet never had anyone been harmed by it. To everyone, it had always been just a place to seek treasures, nothing more. "Foolish brat," He Chong Kong said coldly. "The Azure Dragon altar was brought here from the Lost Lands by our ancestors. Even if the ancient Samsara God Realm's own Saint Sovereigns came, they might not be able to control it." As Meng Luanhui's body dissolved inch by inch, a sudden hum filled the air. A holy light erupted from within him, pure and boundless. It shot into the heavens, radiating a sacred might that swept across the world, dispelling the dragon's deadly green light in an instant. A remnant soul of a saint sovereign? Ziyen narrowed her eyes and said evenly, "I heard Meng Luanhui was favored by their ancestor, Thousand River Saint Sovereign," He Chong Kong said with mild surprise. "I didn't expect he'd even bestow a remnant soul upon him. Seems they knew this boy's arrogance would cause trouble sooner or later." The Saint Sovereign's remnant soul appeared and immediately suppressed the emerald light. Then, under its immense divine power, it began to reconstruct Meng Luanhui's body. In the blink of an eye, he was alive once more, pale-faced and weakened, slumping into a seat beside the pavilion. No one paid him much attention anymore. The Azure Dragon altar had been activated, and obtaining treasures was now everyone's main concern. At that moment, Bai Zhiga stepped forward and looked toward Ziyen. Since the Azure Dragon altar belongs to Skywind City, it would be proper for the Violet Mist Saintess to take the first turn. "Treasure-seeking depends on fate, not order," Ziyen replied calmly. "I'm not in a hurry. In that case, I'll take the liberty of going first," Bai Zhiga said with a smile. He reached into his robe and withdrew a green crystal. It was a piece of Azure Dragon crystal. Ordinary Azure Dragon crystals weren't particularly valuable, but the one in Bai Zhiga's hand gleamed like amber, and within it coiled the faint shadow of a dragon. "A fine crystal," Su Zimo said approvingly. "Master, do you know what that is?" the ancestral warden asked beside him. "This Azure Dragon crystal must be linked to the altar itself," Su Zimo replied. "I suspect Bai Zhiga came prepared." Placing his hand upon the Azure Dragon altar, Bai Zhiga released a radiant purple glow that turned into clouds of violet mist. A low dragon's roar echoed from within. The sound of that roar shook everyone's hearts, and before they could recover, a ray of light burst from the dragon's mouth. Something was wrapped within that beam, which then fell before Bai Zhiga. As he reached out, the green light faded, revealing a shining spirit stone. "The moon-mending stone," Qi Chenyu muttered softly. "A fine treasure indeed. Formed from the essence of lunar energy, a supreme Yin stone. Coming from the Scarlet Blood God realm, Qi Chenyu was well informed. Even he couldn't help but covet such a rare object. "Excellent, excellent," Bai Zhiga said with great satisfaction. "Brother Qi, why don't you try next?" "Fellow Taoist, I came prepared. I fear I cannot compare," Qi Chenyu said with a small shake of his head. He hadn't prepared anything. He was merely here to observe and perhaps try his luck. Still, he placed his hand on the dragon's head, and crimson spirit energy burst forth, coating his entire arm in scarlet light. The Scarlet Blood God realm's oceanic God-blood scripture truly lives up to its reputation, Bai Zhiga praised. But clearly, the Azure Dragon altar was unimpressed. It flickered briefly before falling silent once more. Qi Chenyu gave a wry smile. "Seems I'm not fated either. What about you, sir? Would you like to try?" Ziyen asked, turning to Su Zimo with a faint smile. "You really want me to try?" Su Zimo asked, half smiling. "Please, fellow Taoist," Ziyen said, gesturing politely. Su Zimo stepped forward slowly. Having inherited the memories of the previous Infernal Lord, he already knew what the Azure Dragon altar truly was. It wasn't merely a treasure, it was a test of the heart. "Mighty through the ages, yet my Tao heart stands unshaken," Su Zimo murmured to himself. He didn't place his hand on the altar. Instead, he activated one of the 10 primordial God scriptures, the infinite Samsara demon eye. In an instant, the world before him vanished. There was no azure dragon altar, no pavilion, only an endless, isolated void. Standing in the air, Su Zimo looked up to see a divine dragon coiled above him, eyes closed in slumber. "Time to wake up," Su Zimo said softly, snapping his fingers. It was no ordinary sound. It carried the power of the infernal creation eternal canon, a divine art he had cultivated to perfection. Any sound he made could ripple across existence. "Who dares disturb this divine dragon's sleep?" The dragon roared in fury. Opening its eyes, the world itself seemed to tremble. It fixed its gaze upon Su Zimo, puzzled. "A human? And yet you can perceive the true form of the azure dragon altar? As a member of the dragon race, you should be resting in the azure mystic heaven," Su Zimo said with a smile. "Instead, you're here playing God. Seems the 16 beast races aren't so peaceful after all. Boy, who are you to meddle in the affairs of the god beasts?" The azure dragon snorted coldly. Clearly, Su Zimo's guess had struck true. "Just a passerby," Su Zimo replied lightly. "I've no intention of meddling. I only want one thing." "And why should I give you anything?" the dragon said lazily. "I'm in a foul mood. I've decided not to give you anything." Su Zimo only smiled, saying nothing. Instead, he slowly drew forth a book, the Beast Compendium. Within it were sealed the essences of two mighty beasts, the roaring beast and the primordial dragon. In a sense, the fate of those two clans was already in Su Zimo's hands. "What are you doing?" the azure dragon said suddenly, unease creeping into its voice. That book, it emanated a dreadful aura, as though it were the source of all calamity. "I'll give you one chance," Su Zimo said calmly. "If I open this beast compendium, you'll bear the consequences yourself." As he placed both hands on the cover, the azure dragon shouted in alarm. "Stop! Fine boy, you win. What is it you want?" Hearing the azure dragon's words, Su Zimo replied calmly. "What, you think you've got something here worthy of my attention?" The dragon's expression changed slightly. In truth, he already knew what Su Zimo wanted, but a sliver of hope lingered in his heart. That item was promised to He Chong Kong. "Could you perhaps choose something else?" the dragon asked. "He Chong Kong? You mean the city lord of Skywind City?" Su Zimo asked. "Not him," the dragon shook his head. "I mean the founder of the Violet Mist Holy Lands, the one you people call a peerless prodigy. The two share the same name, but they are not the same person." "Well, that's interesting," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "The current city lord and Violet Mist's ancestor having the same name. What a coincidence." "I can't tell you more," the dragon said seriously. "I swore a blood oath. Even if you kill me, I cannot reveal it." He wasn't lying. If he spoke of it, he would die instantly. "Relax," Su Zimo said indifferently. "Even if you don't tell me, I can figure it out. Give me the item, and I'll leave." The azure dragon hesitated briefly, then nodded. A moment later, Su Zimo's vision blurred, and he found himself back in the pavilion. Before everyone's eyes, the head of the azure dragon statue shattered, and from within shot out a brilliant streak of light. Su Zimo's reflexes were lightning fast. He caught the beam in his hand instantly. After that, the azure dragon altar collapsed completely and did not reform, something that had never happened before. "What happened?" murmurs spread among the onlookers. Ziyen, however, remained composed. She turned toward He Chong Kong and ordered, "City Lord He, just say the azure dragon altar malfunctioned and tell everyone to disperse." After speaking, she turned to Bai Zhiga and the others in the pavilion and smiled. "Gentlemen, let's call it a day. The altar has broken. If the Violet Mist Saintess needs anything, you have only to ask," Bai Zhiga said with a polite smile, preparing to leave since it was clear she was dismissing them. But Meng Luanhui, sitting nearby, looked far from pleased. His blood energy had mostly recovered, and though he wasn't a saint sovereign, he possessed divine blood. As long as his life was intact, his injuries weren't fatal. "Boy, what did you just take?" he demanded, eyes burning with hostility. In the pavilion, the others were all of noble lineage, Bai Zhiga from the Heaven Leaf sect, Qi Chenyu from the Scarlet Blood God realm. Only Su Zimo seemed like a wandering cultivator, unfamiliar to them. Naturally, Meng Luanhui chose him as his target. Going home empty-handed was unacceptable. Before Su Zimo could even respond, Ziyan stepped forward. "Prince Meng, Taoist Su is my guest. Please step back," she said coldly. "Humph, you think you're someone important?" Meng Luanhui sneered. "Calling you Saintess is already me showing you face. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be qualified to speak to me. A third-rate sect like Violet Mist Holy Lands dares to yap before me?" "Prince Meng," He Changkong said, eyes narrowing slightly. "This is Skywind City, not your ancient Samsara god realm. Your ancestors' remnant soul might have saved you once, but it won't save you a second time. You dog! You dare lay a finger on me? Believe it or not, I'll crush your Violet Mist Holy Lands to dust in an instant dash." Before he could finish his sentence, his words stopped abruptly. A pair of hands had already clamped around his throat. The power behind them was terrifying, strong enough to snap his neck with a twist. "You?" Meng Luanhui choked out, struggling desperately. But in the next instant, a nameless fire erupted around He Changkong, consuming Meng Luanhui completely, leaving nothing behind. The one who killed Meng Luanhui was none other than He Changkong himself. He rolled his shoulders slightly, as if still unsatisfied. Nearby, Bai Zhiga and Qi Chenyu froze mid-step, cold sweat dripping down their backs. Neither had ever imagined that the Violet Mist Holy Lands would dare act so boldly. "City Lord we..." Bai Zhiga began awkwardly, forcing a smile. "This has nothing to do with you," He Changkong said calmly. "But today you saw nothing." Right, we saw nothing," both men said at once, nodding frantically like pecking chickens. "Go," He Changkong said, waving his hand. Only then did Ziyan turn her gaze to Su Zimo, smiling. "Young Master Su, may we have a word? Why should I talk to you?" Su Zimo asked with a faint grin. He Changkong also smiled and began walking toward him step by step. But the ancestral warden moved forward, standing beside Su Zimo protectively. "City Lord He, young Master Su is not an enemy," Ziyan said with a soft laugh, shaking her head. Then she continued, "To be honest, just before I came here, I received a decree from the Heavenly Court." At these words, the ancestral warden's eyes narrowed sharply, killing intent flashing within. "No need to be tense," Ziyan said easily. "As I said, we're not enemies. If the Heavenly Court meant to act, this place would already be surrounded." She smiled faintly. "So, can we talk now?" "No," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "I'll stay right here. You can report to the Heavenly Court if you like. But trust me, the one who dies in the end will be you." "It seems you're not one to be threatened," Ziyan said, still smiling. "Good. That's just as I hoped. Then how about we discuss the Skywind Valley?" "You're from Skywind Valley, aren't you?" Su Zimo asked. "To be precise," Ziyan replied, "I'm a descendant of the wind god Tianwu." "Ah," Su Zimo said. "I thought so. Your insight is impressive, young master," Ziyan said with a light laugh. "Shall we continue this conversation at the City Lord's mansion? I believe we can both benefit." "Let's talk here," Su Zimo said casually, sitting down. "What kind of cooperation are you proposing?" "Cooperation," Ziyan said. "In what way?" Su Zimo asked. "I'll help you obtain the wind god's inheritance," she replied. "In return, you'll help me ascend to the rank of Sage Monarch." "Sage Monarch? What a joke!" The ancestral warden interjected before Su Zimo could speak. "You've only just reached the Grand Emperor realm. Becoming a Sage Monarch? That could take ages." "No," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "She's different. She's already undergone transformation, only one step away from Sage Monarch." "That's impossible," the ancestral warden said, frowning. He stared at Ziyan for a long moment but still sensed only the aura of someone who had just entered the Grand Emperor realm. What exactly do you want me to do? Su Zimo asked, ignoring the ancestral warden's doubts for now. I want you to be my Dao guardian, Ziyan said. I've made many enemies. When I step into that realm, they'll come for me without hesitation. Su Zimo fell silent, considering. The inheritance of the ancient god, he had to obtain it.